Chapter 10:26. Against a boss like Long Out Yin, the players of the Apocalypse didn't lack methods to deal damage. What they lacked was the conditions and environment to deal damage effectively. After all, Long Out Yin was a level 80 epic boss. It wasn't something that players who didn't even have the qualifications to complete Awakening quests could deal with. If tanks couldn't tank it, then everything would be for naught. The only thing they could do was fill it up with numbers and give the players behind them a chance to deal damage. This sort of tactic was commonly known as Calabash Brothers saving their grandpa. It was the most taboo tactic for players, but right now, even if they wanted to, they couldn't do it. One could only imagine how desperate the players of the Apocalypse were. According to tradition, the hero that saved the world would only appear when everyone was at their most desperate. In this regard, our Wang Yu had never disappointed anyone. Confucius said, "I, brother Yu, am a man of few words." Just as Long Out Yin's double dragon break was about to be unleashed, there was a flash of light. Wang Yu's tall and sturdy body suddenly appeared behind Long Out Yin. At the same time, Wang Yu's hands formed a cone shape, and he suddenly raised them up, poking Long Out Yin's armpit. Everyone knew that the armpit wasn't just the softest part of the human body, it was also where the itch was. After being poked by Wang Yu, Long Out Yin's body reflexively shrank back. He pulled back his arms, and the condensed double dragon break struck Long Out Yin's feet. Wang Yu jumped up, and with a wave of his hand, a long sword appeared in his hand, and he ruthlessly stabbed it into the back of Long Out Yin's neck. -14578-5 Wang Yu's sword had actually dealt a critical hit. Roar! Long Out Yin felt the pain and roared into the sky. Then, he swung the spear in his hand behind him. As the saying goes, a spear draws a line. Although Long Out Yin used a spear, he used it like a stick, relying entirely on brute force to sweep and smash. In the eyes of a great expert like Wang Yu, this level was only at the level of an amateur. Wang Yu was, after all, a grandmaster. Of course, he would not be so unlucky as to be beaten to death by this kind of elementary school student. Seeing Long Out Yin's shoulder move, Wang Yu knew that this bastard was going to sweep his spear backwards. Before the spear swept backwards, Wang Yu had already moved from the other side of Long Out Yin to the front of Long Out Yin. At this time, Long Out Yin's arms were behind his back, leaving him wide open. Wang Yu couldn't help but raise his sword and stab it into Long Out Yin's throat. -221456, another critical hit lit up, and Long Out Yin's HP dropped by another chunk. F*CK, F*CK. Where the F*CK did this guy come from? At this time, Wang Yu was in disguise. Among the apocalyptic world players present, only Dugu Jiuqiang and a few of his core players knew Wang Yu. In order to keep the plan to ambush Long Out Yin a secret, Dugu Jiuqiang did not reveal the hidden identity of Wang Yu. So when they saw this expert appear out of nowhere, the apocalyptic world players all opened their mouths and stretched their necks. Their faces were filled with shock. None of them were weak, and they knew that a monster's strength could not be judged by appearance. If they didn't know Long Out Yin's strength, seeing Wang Yu's performance, they would definitely think that Long Out Yin was trash. However, the apocalyptic world was the only guild that had fought against Long Out Yin, so they knew how fierce Long Out Yin was. Thousands of players were slaughtered by Long Out Yin in just a few minutes. If such a powerful character wanted to massacre an entire city, no one would be able to stop him. However, at this time, someone suddenly appeared to fight with Long Out Yin, and even beat him up. One could imagine the visual impact. No one knew how to express their feelings at this time. Dragons were a proud race. Although Long Out Yin wasn't a purebred, he still had the genes of dragons. After being continuously beaten up by a reptile, Long Out Yin was completely enraged. He opened his mouth and was about to use Dragon's Roar to stun people again. When the apocalyptic world players attacked Long Out Yin, Wang Yu was hiding not far away, so he naturally knew how powerful Long Out Yin was. When he opened his mouth, if it wasn't Dragon's Roar, then it was Dragon's Breath. These were all methods that could take a person's life. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu took a step forward and cut into Long Outyan's chest. At the same time, he suddenly pushed up with both hands. Long Outyan's originally thunderous roar was immediately stuffed back into his mouth by Wang Yu. At the same time, a mosquito coil appeared on Long Outyan's head. This bastard was actually knocked out by himself. Wang Yu was suddenly happy. He didn't think that there would be an unexpected harvest. Take advantage of the enemy's weakness. This was an unchanging truth. Seeing that Long Outyan had been stunned, Wang Yu went behind Long Outyan, Puci. 2 more slashes. 2 waves of damage floated up, and Long Outyan's health bar clearly decreased. After all, Long Outyan was a boss, and a half-beast boss at that. His resistance to control skills was still very high. Even if it was his own skill, he still reacted quickly. With a roar, Long Outyan once again swung his dragon spear towards Wang Yu. Wang Yu knew that Long Outyan's strength couldn't be taken head-on. Seeing that Long Outyan had turned around, Wang Yu didn't panic and lightly jumped back. Boom! The hard ground was immediately smashed by Long Outyan, and a large hole appeared in the spacious and clean central street. Hiss! Seeing this scene, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. As expected of a half-dragon, could there be a scene more shocking than this? Of course there was. Very quickly, this conclusion was confirmed by Wang Yu. As a martial artist, Wang Yu naturally knew better than anyone else the principle of one strong man defeating 10 skilled men. Originally, Wang Yu wanted to rely on his agility to slowly grind Long Outyan to death. However, after seeing Long Outyan's tyrannical strength, this idea was immediately thrown to the back of Wang Yu's mind. Although Long Outyan was a strength-type boss, because of his human bloodline, his speed wasn't too low. He also had long-range attacks and control skills. As an epic-level boss, this guy's growth potential was also immeasurable. Against this kind of guy, the margin for error was extremely low, and he couldn't be the slightest bit of fluke. There was no such thing as perfect skills in this world. Even Wang Yu couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't make the slightest mistake when facing this kind of boss. After all, the faster the movement, the bigger the movement, and the bigger the movement, the bigger the opening. Against a scary guy like Long Outyan, wasn't exposing an opening just asking for death? Right now, Wang Yu and Long Outyan were like a frog trying to catch a fly. Whoever moved more carelessly would reveal a flaw and lose the initiative. That person would be the fly that was flying around randomly. Therefore, instead of relying on movement to dodge, it was better to stay still and wait for the opponent to be exhausted. After clearly seeing the opponent's attack trajectory, they could then counterattack. Hint: martial art cultivation has not reached the level of us martial artists, so cannot be imitated. Chapter 10:27. Seeing Wang Yu's action, everyone was dumbfounded. Everyone had witnessed Long Outyan's strength. Facing such a boss, shouldn't he be using movement to harass and attack? Why did this guy suddenly stop there? Could it be that he was courting death? Even the infuriated Long Outyan was a little dazed when he saw Wang Yu, who was flying around like a fly, stop at his original spot. He mocked, "Despicable coward, have you finally stopped dodging? Did you see that?" This was the logic of a hooligan. In a fight, one was not allowed to dodge. If he didn't stand there and take the hit, he was a coward. If he won, Wang Yu would be useless. If he was killed by Wang Yu, he would probably say that Wang Yu had an unfair advantage. Wang Yu smiled faintly and hooked his finger at Long Outyan. "Come at me." At the same time, Wang Yu sent a message to Dugu Jiuqiang. "I'll hold him off. You guys attack." "Attack? You? You're not joking, right?" Dugu Jiuqiang was at a loss when he received the message. Dugu Jiuqiang was also aware of Wang Yu's strength. If Wang Yu was using movement to deal with Long Outyan, Dugu Jiuqiang did not think that Wang Yu had no chance of winning. After all, Wang Yu's reputation as the world's #1 fighter was definitely well-deserved. However, now that Wang Yu was standing there planning to face Long Outyan head-on, Dugu Jiuqiang's heart turned cold. If you're looking for death, why should we fight? As for Dugu Jiuqiang's question, Wang Yu did not answer him because Long Outyan had already launched an attack on Wang Yu. Long Outyin was a proud dragon. In this world, everyone knew how powerful dragons were. Who would dare to provoke him? Not to mention Wang Yu's provocation. Lowly worm, I'll let you know what real power is. Long Outyin shouted. He swung the spear in his hand and leaped high, smashing it head-on. However, Wang Yu acted as if he didn't see it and didn't have the slightest intention to dodge. F***CK. Why aren't you hiding? When the world's end players saw this, they all felt anxious for Wang Yu. If they weren't afraid that Long Outyin would turn around and kill them, they would have already started shouting. Seeing that Long Outyin had leaped into the air, Wang Yu didn't panic. He took half a step forward and arrived diagonally below Long Outyin. At the same time, he grabbed the end of the staff with his left hand and raised it with his right hand. The head of the staff was like an agile, poisonous snake, passing through the spear in Long Outyin's hand and pressing against Long Outyin's lower abdomen. Everyone, feel free to try what it feels like for a man to have his lower abdomen pressed against. Even if Long Outyin was a male dragon, it was inevitable that he wouldn't be able to exert his strength when a bunch of old grandpas used a staff to press against that position. Moreover, Long Outyin was currently in midair and had nowhere to borrow strength from. Fly. When the time came, taking advantage of Long Outyin's panic, Wang Yu shouted and used both his hands to flick backwards. Long Outyin, who was in midair, instantly lost his balance. Long Outyin was so huge that he had to have a strong impact when he jumped. If he lost his balance when he was in such a state, the consequences would be severe. Plop, plop, bang. There was a loud crash, and Long Outyin flew through the air in an arc and fell to the ground. He bounced on the ground and did a somersault. Then his head hit the wall and fell to the ground. What kind of explanation is this? Seeing that Long Outyin had been sent flying by Wang Yu's staff, the world's end players had their worldview refreshed. Everyone stood there in confusion, forgetting about the attack order that Dugu Jiuqiang had just given. Speaking of which, the most confused person was Long Outyin, who was dizzy from the fall. Even now, he still didn't know why he had been hit from the sky. When he regained his senses, Wang Yu was standing not far away, holding his staff in his hand and waving it at him. Seeing Wang Yu's staff, Long Outyin was once again enraged. He raised his head and opened his mouth to roar, but at this moment, Wang Yu's staff stretched forward and struck Long Outyin's chin. Sigh. Poor Long Outyin let out a strange sound after being hit by the stick. Hey, so you just wanted to scream? Sorry, I couldn't hold it in. Wang Yu saw that Long Outyin only wanted to use the sound to express his emotions, so he smiled embarrassedly. It couldn't be helped, Long Outyin didn't have much to say. It was just that before breathing and roaring, he had to raise his head and open his mouth. Seeing this guy raise his head, Wang Yu instinctively lashed out. Damn bastard. This time, Long Outyin learned his lesson. He picked up the spear on the ground, stood up, and charged at Wang Yu. Wang Yu took half a step back, extended his staff, and blocked the tip of Long Outyin's spear. Then, he pulled it downwards, and Long Outyin's spear stabbed into the ground. Long Outyin's strength was so great that the spear tip sank into the ground. At this moment, Wang Yu's staff extended to Long Outyin's feet. Long Outyin couldn't avoid it in time and staggered. Seeing that Long Outyin lost his balance, Wang Yu kicked Long Outyin's butt. Long Outyin cried out and fell to the ground again. Oh, the Apocalypse World players who were hiding in the alleyway let out a long oh when they saw Long Outyin die again. Wang Yu unhappily sent a message to Dugu Jiuqiang. Oh, your brother-in-law. Why aren't you attacking? Attack? You? You're not joking, right? It was the same words as before, but Dugu Jiuqiang's mood had already flown from hell to heaven. Based on Wang Yu's current performance, Long Outyin was just being hung up. Why would he need help from others? However, what Dugu Jiuqiang didn't know was that although Wang Yu looked mighty, Wang Yu's current state was completely defensive. He could only rely on Long Outyin's attacks and leverage his staff to attack. Tumbling into the wall wasn't even considered a normal attack, so the damage was naturally limited. However, Wang Yu couldn't initiate an attack. If he did, The position of the two would change, and the one lying on the ground wouldn't be Long Outyin. Of course, it wouldn't be Wang Yu either. With Long Outyin's attack power, how could Wang Yu leave him alive? It couldn't be helped. Wang Yu was only a level 50 player, while Long Outyin was a level 80 epic boss. The difference between them wasn't as simple as 30 levels. Long Outyin's dragon attribute aside, just the awakening in the middle was something that couldn't be measured by levels. With such a massive gap between them, ordinary players wouldn't be able to survive. The fact that Wang Yu had managed to hold her ground was already an impressive feat, although Wang Yu could attack while defending herself. Doing so would be risky. Moreover, with Long Outyin's death, the ones who would benefit the most would be the Apocalypse players. Since they were all here, it was only natural to let them do something. Otherwise, why would they be sitting around doing nothing? Chapter 10:28. Oh, got it. Dugu Zhuqiang noticed Wang Yu's unfriendly tone and immediately sent an order in the channel. Attack Long Outyin. Following Dugu Zhuqiang's command, the apocalyptic world players took aim at Long Outyin and started attacking. Everyone knew that they wouldn't be able to tank Long Outyin's damage output, so they switched to equipment that increased their DPS. Even the clerics used their attack skills. The moment Long Outyin got up, he was instantly overwhelmed by the attacks of the apocalyptic world players. Countless magic arrows bombarded Long Outyin's body, causing him to stagger back a few steps. Shameless worms, Long Outyin bellowed, turning his gaze towards Dugu Zhuqiang's group in a box. Who wouldn't pick a soft persimmon? Long Outyin was in a fit of anger after being thrown to the ground by Wang Yu. When the apocalyptic world players came to stab him in the back, Long Outyin was instantly enraged. In a fit of rage, he flew towards Dugu Zhuqiang's group. Wang Yu wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. After offending Wang Yu, they still wanted to leave? How could it be so simple? Seeing Long Outyin shift his aggro to someone else, Wang Yu quickly caught up. He took out his knife and stabbed the back of Long Outyin's neck twice. At this moment, Long Outyin had encountered the most difficult matter in his life as a dragon. Should he give his back to Wang Yu, or should he give his back to someone else? This was the question. Wang Yu's attacks were ruthless, accurate, and slippery. After exchanging a few blows with him, Long Outyin had a deep understanding of this. Although the players in the alley couldn't withstand a single blow, it was obvious that there were many of them. Under such circumstances, no matter who Long Outyin entrusted his back to, it would be extremely dangerous. After hesitating for a few seconds, Long Outyin finally clenched his teeth and suppressed his heart. He decided to kill Wang Yu first before dealing with the others. After all, although there were many players in the alley, their attack range was too wide. Only a few players could actually land a hit on Long Outyin. Compared to a vicious character like Wang Yu, who aimed for Long Outyin's vital points, their damage was slightly lower. How could Long Outyin be at ease if he allowed such a detestable fellow to attack freely from the back? Thus, Long Outyin turned around with red eyes and once again fought with Wang Yu. Of course, the result was not much different from before. When he saw that Long Outyin had turned around and was charging back, Wang Yu continued to use the strategy of waiting for him to exhaust himself, adopting a defensive style of play. No matter how ferocious Long Outyin's attacks were, Wang Yu could always borrow strength to counterattack, countering each move as it came. Wang Yu's staff techniques were exquisite. After fighting for a while, not only was Long Outyin unable to harm a single hair on Wang Yu's head, but Wang Yu even used his staff to fling him around, making a fool of himself. At the same time, the players of the Apocalypse era also launched a fierce assault on Long Outyin. Although these players' attacks were not accurate, there were too many of them. Under wave after wave of attacks, Long Outyin's HP gradually decreased. Long Outyin was an epic boss. His combat level would increase as he fought. Under the encirclement of Wang Yu and the others, Long Outyin also understood that relying on physical attacks could only passively take a beating. If he wanted to win, he had to use large-scale killing skills like Dragon's Breath or Dragon's Roar. However, Wang Yu was very cunning. He was always on guard against Long Outyin. As soon as he raised his head, Wang Yu would hit him with his staff. Even if Long Outyin was hit until he cried out, Wang Yu would also hit him a few times. After this repeated a few times, Long Outyin was also beaten out of the shadow. When he saw Wang Yu's staff pointing at his mouth, he quickly shut up. In this way, the miserable Long Outyin was stuck by Wang Yu, while the others attacked with all their might. Not long after, Long Outyin's HP dropped to 30%. At that time, a black light flashed on Long Outyin's body, and Wang Yu was directly pushed out by this light. Roar! Immediately after, Long Outyin let out a loud roar, and his body began to expand violently. The clothes on his body all burst open, revealing a dark body that was emitting light and covered in scales. Not good, he's going to transform. Everyone retreat. When Wang Yu saw this scene, he immediately thought of the dragon blood spear god who had died in his hands. Transforming into a giant dragon was originally a dragon-type boss's talent skill. Even a level 30 small character like the dragon blood spear god could transform, let alone a high-level NPC like Long Outyin. Under the protection of the black protective shield, Long Outyin's body rapidly grew. Long Outyin, who was originally only slightly burly than an ordinary person, turned into a giant dragon that was more than 10 meters tall in less than 10 seconds. Long Outyin had a huge body and streamlined muscles. He exuded an unparalleled power, and his shining black dragon scales made it clear that Long Outyin wasn't just a giant dragon. He was a superior black dragon. No one knew how low it was. It's a black dragon. Seeing Long Outyin's transformed appearance, Dugu Jiuqiang and the others cried out in shock, thinking that they were doomed. One must know that in the background story of Rebirth, the black dragons were existences that were only inferior to the gold dragons and silver dragons. They were one of the 3 upper-class dragons that specialized in destructive power. They did not expect the Lord of Sky Dragon City to have the bloodline of the upper-class dragons. This was a genuine upper-class giant dragon. Low-class red dragons like the Dragon Blood God were incomparable to Long Outyin. In the background story of Rebirth, it was recorded that an upper-class black dragon could kill tens of thousands of humans with one breath. Even if the legend was discounted, this bastard could kill thousands of people with one breath. No matter how overpowered Wang Yu was, he was only a small player. How could he compete with this monster? Thinking of this, Dugu Jiuqiang did not say anything and immediately ordered his subordinates to retreat. However, just as the people of the apocalypse wanted to run, they found that it was very difficult to move. Everyone was shocked and quickly checked their status. Only then did they realize that there was a debuff above their heads. Dragon's Might. You've been deterred by an upper-class giant dragon. All attributes have decreased by 35%. Everyone knew that Dragon's Might was based on the difference in level. All attributes decreased by 35%, which meant that Long Outyin was 35 levels higher than everyone else. Whoosh! Long Outyin, who had transformed into a black dragon, spread his arms and floated into the air. He shouted at Wang Yu, "In front of the proud dragons, are you still not going to submit?" Bang! A loud sound rang out. Wang Yu responded to Long Outyin with a gun in his hand. Long Outyin trembled slightly from Wang Yu's attack. He then said in surprise, "Why aren't you affected by my dragon's might?" Nonsense. Wang Yu jumped up and landed on the same level as Long Outyin. He smashed his rod on Long Outyin's neck. Long Outyin trembled from the impact once again. Then he flapped his wings, and the intense wind pressure blew Wang Yu away from him. Wang Yu somersaulted in the air and landed steadily on the roof opposite Long Outyin. It's the Dragon Emperor bloodline. Chapter 10:29. No wonder Long Outyin's dragons might had no effect on Wang Yu. It turned out that Wang Yu's Dragon Emperor bloodline was bestowed by the Dragon Emperor. Compared to Long Outyin's Black Dragon bloodline, it was more than a level stronger. At this time, not only did Long Outyin not have any dragon's might over Wang Yu, but on the contrary, if Wang Yu and Long Outyin were the same level, Long Outyin, with his dragon's bloodline, would have to bow down to Wang Yu. Of course, Wang Yu's level was much lower than Long Outyin's. The only advantage of the Dragon Emperor bloodline was the additional bonus when attacking other dragons. It was not because of restraint, but because of submission. Oomph. So what if you have the Dragon Emperor bloodline? Isn't it all about strength? Do you think I'm afraid of you? Long Outyin snorted disdainfully. He spread his wings and rose a few meters. At this time, the players who had been killed at the entrance of the Castellan's mansion saw this scene from the resurrection point and chased after them. As the number of players increased, the streets became crowded. However, Long Outyin was now more than 10 meters in the air. Everyone could only see Long Outyin's figure. Only the archers could attack him. After transforming into a dragon, Long Outyin's defense was already frighteningly high. The archer's arrows could only hit Long Outyin's body and forcefully reduce his HP by 1. Although it did not hurt or itch, the dignity of a dragon could not be trampled on. Being harassed by an ant in front of him, Long Outyin stretched out his head and a thick black dragon's breath came out of his mouth. It spread out toward the players on the ground. Wang Yu stood on the roof, observing Long Outyin's movements. When he saw Long Outyin exhale, he quickly moved to the bottom of Long Outyin's body. As for the players on the street, they weren't as observant as Wang Yu. As the scorching dragon flame rained down, everyone witnessed the true power of a dragon. In his dragon form, Proud Dragon's dragon breath was much more powerful than when he was in his Dragon Man form. Even the buildings on the ground were destroyed by the dragon breath. The players were in an even worse state. No one was spared from the dragon breath. Not a single player was spared from the dragon breath. They all turned into white light and rushed to the resurrection point. Mother **Ker, seeing how powerful Long Outyin was after transforming into a dragon, Wang Yu's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. It seemed that Long Outyin's strength was not something that Yu Huiqing's Lord Willie could compare to. This time, they were in big trouble. Needless to say, the players of Sky Dragon City, especially those who died under Long Outyin's dragon breath, were all like frightened rabbits, hiding in the resurrection shop, not daring to step out of the encirclement. Just as everyone was panicking, a system announcement rang out in the game. System announcement. Year XXXX of the rebirth calendar, Sky Dragon City's Castellan, Long Outyin, has violated the Castellan's management covenant. He has massacred the citizens and destroyed the city. He has committed a heinous crime. Brave warriors, please take up your weapons, eradicate the evil dragon, and protect your homeland. The system announcement was repeated 3 times, and the news of Long Outyin's betrayal quickly spread to every corner of the game world. After hearing the news, everyone was dumbfounded. What did Sky Dragon City do? The Castellan actually betrayed us and massacred the entire city. I heard from my friends in Sky Dragon City that it seems like Long Outyin has gone mad and turned into a half-human, half-dragon, killing everyone he sees on the streets. So scary? Yeah. Speaking of which, our Castellan wouldn't do that, right? Our Castellan is human. As the news spread all over the world, everyone's reactions were either dumbfounded or shocked. Only Chuanjin's group shouted in the channel, "Old cow, you're really something. Heh, you really made big news." This was especially so for Chun Xiang, who praised the rising star of Chuanjin. TSK, old cow. Everyone used to say that our Chuanjin is a jinx, but I think you're a few levels higher than us. Let's just call you the jinx. That was right. The scum of Chuanjin had always been known to cause trouble wherever they went. They were known for destroying things, but not building anything. After coming to rebirth, they were suppressed by Wang Yu, the rising star, in terms of strength. Forget it. After all, everyone had known each other for a long time, and they had accepted their fate. They knew that they could not compare to monsters. But now, even their ability to cause trouble was directly surpassed by Wang Yu. The elders of Chuanjin could only sigh, thinking that their skills were not as good as Wang Yu's, and the younger generation would surpass them in time. They had even caused a giant dragon to massacre the city. This was the legendary saying that wherever one went, not even a blade of grass would grow, of course. Wang Yu did not have the time to look at everyone else's words. This was because after he saw the system notification, Long Outyin was even more dumbfounded than everyone else. After being stunned for a few seconds, he aimed his head at Wang Yu and started to spit out dragon's breath. It was very clear that after the system judged him as a traitor to massacre the city, Long Outyin had really gone crazy this time. The destructive power of Long Outyin in a frenzy could not be described with words. Naturally, Wang Yu would not be so arrogant as to face Long Outyin head-on. He could only flee left and right on the rooftops as he ran for his life. Long Outyin flapped his wings and followed closely behind. Dragon's breath was like justice descending from the heavens, and it followed closely behind Wang Yu, destroying Heavenly Dragon City beyond recognition. The players who had overestimated their abilities and planned to slaughter the dragon in Heavenly Dragon City saw Long Outyin's figure, but before they could say a word, they were engulfed by Dragon's breath. It cannot be helped. Long Outyin's betrayal was a storyline that could only be activated after players reached level 100. At that time, players would already be powerful enough to deal with a berserk dragon. But now, everyone was not even level 50, and this storyline had been activated by Wang Yu ahead of time. How could anyone stand a chance against him? As Wang Yu ran for his life, Heavenly Dragon City, one of the 4 main cities of Heavenly Dragon City, fell into a sea of flames. The battle was so fierce, and the scene was so bloody that even the author couldn't help but despise Wang Yu for bringing disaster to Heavenly Dragon City. Every building was destroyed by Dragon's breath, and Wang Yu lost his foothold and was forced into a corner by Long Outyin. Seeing that Wang Yu had nowhere to run, Long Outyin bared his white teeth and laughed cruelly. "Despicable worm, I won't let you off easy even if you destroy me." Saying so, Long Outyin clasped his claws together, and a black energy cage appeared above Wang Yu. "Draconic magic, soul, curse. Go to hell." Long Outyin bellowed, and the cage descended from the sky. Soul Curse was a draconic magic, a powerful debuff spell. Once the curse wrapped around the target, it would stick to them like maggots. Unless the caster could personally dispel the curse, it wouldn't go away no matter how many times the target died. In the blink of an eye, when the cage was about to latch onto his head, Wang Yu rolled and flashed all the way to Long Outyin's side. When Long Outyin saw Wang Yu dashing to his side, a treacherous smile appeared on his face, and he shouted, "Fool, you've been tricked." Wang Yu was shocked when he heard that. He raised his head hurriedly and saw a black energy chain flying toward him. Chapter 10:30. Meow. Long Outyin was only acting crazy on the surface, but he was actually very clear on the inside. Long Outyin knew that players at this stage of the game hadn't learned flight yet. Once they were in the air, they couldn't freely change their direction. So, Long Outyin made a sinister feint, tricking Wang Yu into the air. Unexpectedly, the killer move was behind him. Originally, Wang Yu had Qinggong, so he could have dodged it. Unfortunately, when he was escaping from Long Outyin, he had used up all of his Qinggong points. At this time, he couldn't use quadruple leap. Just as Wang Yu was about to be entangled by Long Outyin's curse, there was a whoosh. Wang Yu's 2 pure white wings stretched out from his back. With a flap of the wings, Wang Yu flew straight up, over Long Outyin's chains, and into the sky. God! Protoss? Seeing Wang Yu's wings, Long Outyin was once again shocked by Wang Yu. Meow. He had slain gods and dragons, and he even had the divine feather in dragon's bloodline. What kind of person could do this? Dragons and Protoss were the top existences in the world. Wang Yu had offended both sides, and he still dared to openly use the relics of the Protoss and dragons. Damn, even a powerhouse like Long Outyin felt his scalp go numb when he saw Wang Yu. Of course, unless it was absolutely necessary, Wang Yu didn't want to use this pair of wings. After all, Wang Yu hadn't really flown before. In terms of agility, Qinggong was much more agile than gliding wings. Moreover, it wasn't like Long Outyin didn't know how to fly. There wasn't even any cover in the sky. Wouldn't Wang Yu's flying skills be like showing off in front of an expert? If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't avoid it, Wang Yu wouldn't have bothered to use it. While Long Outyin was distracted, Wang Yu had already flown directly above Long Outyin. Long Outyin spread his wings, raised his head, and released a dragon's breath into the sky. Then, he followed the dragon's breath, aimed at Wang Yu, and rushed upwards. However, when he rushed to the height of Wang Yu, he found that there was no trace of Wang Yu. Roar! Coward, come out! Long Outyin circled around in the sky, but still couldn't find Wang Yu. Anger rose in his heart, and he cursed loudly. The players of Sky Dragon City hid in the safe zone and shivered at the sight of the giant dragons flying in the sky. In the past, everyone thought that the giant dragon's cursing was just a joke. Today, it seemed like the end of the world. Idiot, can you shut up? Just as Long Outyin was about to scold himself, a familiar voice suddenly rang. Then, Long Outyin felt a sharp pain at the back of his neck. -274141. A huge golden damage value floated above Long Outyin's head. Only then did the players below notice that someone was riding on Long Outyin's neck. Lowly human? Get off my back. The dragon race had always been proud and arrogant. It was a great insult to Long Outyin to be ridden on his back by a human. Long Outyin shouted as he turned around in midair, trying to fling Wang Yu off his back. The quick-witted Wang Yu was still experienced in slaying dragons. How could he let Long Outyin have his way so easily? The moment he climbed onto Long Outyin's back, Wang Yu took out a bundle of rope from his bag and wrapped it around Long Outyin's neck. At this time, Wang Yu grabbed the rope with one hand, as if he was putting a rein on Long Outyin's back. At the same time, he held a long sword in his other hand and meticulously stabbed it into the wound on Long Outyin's back scale. There was no bloody scene in the game. No matter how hard Wang Yu stabbed, there would not be a splash of snow on Long Outyin's wound. Only the number that floated above Long Outyin's head allowed everyone to clearly see how ruthless Wang Yu was. Following Wang Yu's attack, Long Outyin's health bar became thinner and thinner. Long Outyin knew that he could not live for much longer. He sadly looked at the people who used to belong to him on the streets, and a huge tear fell from his eye. He spread his wings and flew out of Sky Dragon City with Wang Yu. Wang Yu was a soft-hearted person. Seeing Long Outyin like this, he felt very bad in his heart. Long Outyin was doing well as the city lord, governing Sky Dragon City to become prosperous and rich, but Wang Yu jumped out and killed him. Indeed, he was not a good person, but a quest was a quest. Wang Yu had no other choice. After Long Outyin flew out of Sky Dragon City, Wang Yu once again attacked Long Outyin. Finally, Long Outyin's health bar hit rock bottom, and he fell from the sky. Boom! Long Outyin crashed into the ground, creating a large crater. Wang Yu leaped into the air and landed next to Long Outyin. Long Outyin, who only had one breath left, looked at Wang Yu, who had returned to his original appearance. He was first shocked, then bitterly smiled and said, "So, it's City Lord Yu Huicheng. In that case, I will entrust my people to you. I hope you will take care of them." When a dragon is about to die, its words are kind. However, Long Outyin's attachment to Sky Dragon City was not fake. Wang Yu said guiltily, "City Lord Long, I'm sorry. This is a quest." "I know." Long Outyin smiled and nodded. His huge body turned into motes of white light. System notice: you have killed the traitorous evil dragon Long Outyin. Obtained XXXX EXP, reputation plus XXXX, faction honor plus XXXX, Sky Dragon City honor plus XXXX. You have obtained the title Sky Dragon City Lord. You have obtained the title Dragon Slayer. You have obtained the title Sky Dragon City Protector. At the same time, a system announcement appeared in the game. Rebirth calendar year XXXX. Sky Dragon City's city lord rebelled and massacred the city. A dragon slayer fought back and killed the evil dragon. His heroic deeds will be recorded in history. Looking at the series of titles, rewards, and honors, strangely, Wang Yu did not feel as proud as before. Instead, he felt as if he had done something wrong. Perhaps Long Outyin's last words touched Wang Yu. Wang Yu did not think that he had a heart of stone. Seeing Long Outyin still think of his people before he died, Wang Yu could not help but feel moved. If it was those guys from Chuanjin, it probably wouldn't have been like this. Wang Yu shook his head and thought, it's just a game. It seems I was too engrossed in it. Picking up the items that Long Outyin dropped, Wang Yu sat at the spot where Long Outyin died and recovered his stamina. At this time, Wang Yu's message bar kept flashing. Boss Iron Ox? Where did you go? Nyoga? Why aren't you saying anything? Bull! He opened his message bar, and the first thing that greeted him was a series of messages from Duga Juqiang. His words were repeated over and over again, and they all had the same meaning. Nyoga, where are you? Why aren't you saying anything? When can I become a city lord? Chapter 1031. After closing the dialogue box with Duga 9 Spears, he received a message from a group of people in the Quanjin sect channel. Wang Yu knew that these people from Chuanjin didn't doubt his strength and character. Right now, they only wanted to know what Long Outyin had dropped. As expected, when Wang Yu tapped on the messages of the people from the Chuanjin sect, they seemed to have discussed it before. They asked in unison, Old Nyo, what did Long Outyin drop? Wang Yu shook his head, speechless. He then sent the items that Long Outyin had dropped to the guild channel. Chuanjin excitedly opened them one by one, and exclamations of surprise filled the air. Sky Dragon City's Lord Seal. This was Wang Yu's official identity. At this time, Wang Yu was already the lord of 2 main cities. Such an identity could be said to be extremely illustrious. However, the people of the Chuanjin sect only liked money. They didn't care much about power and influence. After seeing the seal, they only sighed at the impermanence of the world, sympathized with the apocalypse, and despised the solitary 9 Spears. Then, they opened the second item. Black Dragon Breaching the Ranks. Spear. Epic Attack. 400-600 mana. 300-500 plus 42 Strength, plus 44 Vitality, plus 15 Agility Berserk Dragon Devil Flame. Passive skill. This item was forged with Dragon Breath. It has the power of Dragon Flames. When attacking, it has 60% splash damage. Wither. Passive skill. Dragon Breath has unparalleled destructive power. In battle, the Black Dragon breaching the ranks will automatically store energy. When full, the next attack will increase by 200%. At the same time, it has a Wither effect. In the Wither state, the target's HP will decrease by 2% every second for 5 seconds. Black Dragon Bloodline. Passive skill. Can awaken the Black Dragon bloodline in the body to better adapt to the battlefield. In the awakened state, attack power increases by 50%. Current state, not awakened demonic dragon's breath. Active skill. The powerful dragon breath can deal magic damage to enemy units in a rectangular area in a specific direction. Dragon's Roar. Active skill. Unleashes an intimidating roar, causing a targeted enemy unit within a 200 range to dizzy and deal damage. When activated, Black Dragon Bloodline Awakening can stun enemy units within a 800 range. Item Introduction. Dragon's Forger Karsi once cultivated his skills in the Dragon Graveyard, the Fallen Dragon Pit, and used the spine of a black dragon to forge a peerless artifact. Class Requirement. Universal Level Requirement. 45 Epic Skill. Demon Dragon's Absolute Breath Slash. Swings the Black Dragon Army Breaker Halberd and attacks all targets within a 500-meter radius. It's a common epic equipment. The moment the Black Dragon breaching the army halberd appeared, the eyes of the Chuanjin people immediately turned into heart shapes. The greatest sorrow of melee classes was their short hands and lack of AoE damage. The greatest weakness of range classes was their inability to allow enemies to close in on them. The greatest pain of DPS classes was their lack of crowd control skills. This weapon was a combination of ranged, melee, crowd control, magic, and AoE damage. Every skill was extremely powerful. More importantly, although the Black Dragon breaching the ranks halberd had the attributes of a warrior, it was a common weapon. A common weapon, as the name suggested, meant that every class could use it. Combined with this weapon's all-round attributes, it could be said that it was suitable for any class. Moreover, this was a complete epic artifact. Players didn't need to go through the trouble of searching for its fragments, nor did they need to complete quests all over the world. From this, it could be seen that its value was unimaginable. Holy sh*t this. How much is this? When he saw the black dragon breaching the rank's halberd's attributes, to place one's pride almost drooled. Famous sword Dao Shui said confidently, "This is a complete epic artifact. It's probably the only one in the entire server." It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that it's the #1 artifact in the entire server. A conservative estimate would sell it for 100,000 gold. 100,000 gold? Wang Yu couldn't help but exclaim, "That's nearly 6 million renminbi. Is there really someone who's willing to spend so much money on an item in the game?" Even though Wang Yu had been playing the game for quite some time, Wang Yu's concept of spending was still somewhat different from the people in Chuanjin. Wang Yu already felt that it was a waste of money for players to spend tens of thousands of dollars on in-game items. Even though Wang Yu was used to big events, he still felt that it was unbelievable that players would spend millions on a piece of equipment. Seeing Wang Yu's surprise, to place one's pride laughed and said, "Uncle Nyo, you're not good enough. You can't use common sense to measure the rich players in the game. It's just a few million. It's nothing to them. Moreover, you're talking about something as big as a weapon? I think 100,000 gold is too little." "Huh." Wang Yu laughed and said, "Look at how excited you are. I'll sell it to you for 100,000 gold. Do you want it?" "Well," to place one's pride hesitated and said softly, "My weapon is also epic. There's no need to spend so much money on another one." "TSK?" Wang Yu was disdainful. He then asked the others, "What about you guys?" 80,000 gold. It's definitely a brother price. F***CK. Uncle Nyo, why isn't my brother price? You're my nephew. Wang Yu laughed. To place one's pride was speechless. Seeing Wang Yu selling the equipment on the spot, the rest of Chuanjin reacted the same as to place one's pride. They had no intention of buying it. After all, the people in Chuanjin had always been chased by people when they went out. They were used to being light. Things like spears were cumbersome. Although the attributes were strong, no one could use them. Secondly, the people from the Quanjun sect all had top-tier weapons in their hands. After using a certain weapon for a long time, they would be more familiar with it. Even their skills would be compatible with it. If they suddenly changed weapons now, they would definitely have to learn new skills. This would be another huge expense. No one would do something so mentally exhausting. Moreover, the current value of the item was only an estimate. No one could guarantee that it would sell for this price in the future. 100,000 gold was not a small amount for the people in Chuanjin. Chun Xiang was more mature. Seeing that Wang Yu did not want to keep it for himself, he reminded him, "I think, old cow, you can put this up for auction. A common epic weapon will definitely be worth a lot." "Don't talk nonsense," Wu Ji said. "System, the auction will be filled with professional merchants. What price can it sell for?" Indeed, there were many professional merchants in the game. If the price of the weapon was set too high, the secondary dealers would definitely not buy it. Instead, they would throw in processing fees. If the price was set too low, they would not increase the price. Instead, they would wait until the last second before the auction ended. No matter what, they would not let the seller make money. "Should we shout in the World Channel?" Wang Yu asked as he scratched his head. Wu Ji said, "There are many reporters and scammers in the world. They're even more unreliable than secondary dealers." "Then what should we do?" Wang Yu was a little annoyed. This game was full of pitfalls. It was more troublesome than real life. Wu Ji smiled and said, "Go to the live auction. That's where the nouveau riche gathers. Your toy will definitely fetch a good price." Chapter 1032. I was just joking. Did you guys take it seriously? Seeing that everyone was seriously discussing it, Wang Yu laughed. "I don't lack money right now." Everyone was taken aback when they heard this. F***CK, you piece of trash. Who did you learn to be so cheap? Indeed, apart from the guild leaders of the big guilds, the people from the Quanjin sect would definitely be at the top of the list. This was especially so for Wang Yu. This brat always got the biggest share of the profits. He also had a grocery store that was doing very well. There was probably no one in the Quanjin sect who was wealthier than him. Why would he sell a legendary weapon for such a small amount of money? Seeing Chuanjin's reaction, Wang Yu was amused. Who did you learn this from? Don't you know? F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK, F asterisk CK. Everyone send a middle finger emoji in the channel. Meow. The ancient said that a man who has been away for 3 days must be treated differently. It seemed that this kid was no longer that pure and flawless little flower. Just as everyone was denouncing Wang Yu, Wuji suddenly exclaimed, "Huh? What's this thing? What is it? What is it?" Seeing Wuji's message, everyone's thoughts were immediately pulled back. "What's below?" Wuji said. "Below? It's very ordinary." "Wuji, what are you making a fuss about?" Just now, everyone had roughly looked through the attributes of the items sent by Wang Yu. However, other than the epic weapon, the others were ingredients and forging materials such as dragon meat, dragon scales, and dragon bones. Although they were precious, no one was interested in them. The bottom, seeing that everyone was looking down on his taste, Wuji reminded Wuji. The bottom? Everyone hurriedly scrolled up to the items sent by Wang Yu. Their eyes fell on the bottom grid. At this time, a black round object fell into everyone's eyes. Everyone quickly clicked on it, but the attributes showed a line of question marks. What the F asterisk CK is this? Everyone was confused. Long Outyin was a level 80 boss, so why did it drop a stone? Wang Yu took out the black object and looked at it for a while. "I'm not sure, but I think I've seen it somewhere before." Wuji said, "Of course you have. If I'm not wrong, this should be a pet egg." Pet eggs were the rarest of the rarest. Among the Chuanjin sect's disciples who were used to seeing grand occasions, only 2 people had ever seen a pet egg. One was Wuji, and the other was Wang Yu. As the only person in Chuanjin with a pet, Chunxiang's pet was called a summoned beast. Wuji had the right to speak. Hearing Wuji's words, everyone was shocked and immediately said, "This is a pet egg? Does old cow have an appraisal scroll?" "Yes." Wang Yu nodded and took out a red book from his pocket. He tore off a page and slapped it on the round thing. The appraisal scroll turned into a red light and drilled into the egg. Then a black light emitted from the egg. Immediately after, the black outer layer of the egg peeled off piece by piece, revealing a smooth, oval object. Although it was still black, this time it was shiny and looked much better than before. Black Dragon's Egg. Pet egg after hatching. You will get a Black Dragon pet. Level requirement. 50 profession requirement. Dragon Knight. F asterisk CK. Seeing that this ugly thing was really a pet egg, everyone in Chuanjin could not help but exclaim. A Black Dragon's pet egg. Currently, the pet system in Rebirth was still hidden. Obtaining pets depended on the players themselves. Archers had their own taming skills and could squat to guard their pets. Other professions were not so lucky. After all, the monsters in the game were not as intelligent as the animals in real life. They cannot be lured away by just taking some food. According to the all-powerful players, obtaining pets was nothing more than raising them from a young age. Viviparous players abducted their babies, and oviparous players took their eggs. To put it bluntly, they were stealing newborn monsters. Of course, it was the player's business, so it couldn't be called stealing. However, although Rebirth was a simulation of all professions, it still had to be planned. Normal monsters were spawned by the system. Only some rare bosses with a long respawn period could give birth. Bosses were existences that could only be encountered by chance, not to mention rare bosses. Not to mention rare bosses that were pregnant. The probability was so low that it could make people commit suicide. So far, apart from the archer profession, the number of players with pets in the entire game could be counted on one hand. After all, there were hundreds of millions of players in the game. The probability was obvious at a glance. Not only was the thing in Wang Yu's hand a super rare pet egg, but it was also a dragon pet. From the looks of it, it was the highest quality dragon pet. Dragons were the top existences in any game or myth. Being able to have a high-quality dragon pet was equivalent to being at the top of the game. That feeling was not much different from driving a limited edition Bugatti Veyron to school and selling water at the school gate. Even the experienced and knowledgeable people in Chuanjin couldn't help but drool. I'll pay 200,000 gold. Bao San was the most honest and started bidding on the spot. After all, being able to bring a dragons on the streets was not as simple as face. Compared to the strength of dragons, fame was not worth mentioning. Not to mention anything else, just the dragon's aura alone could greatly increase the speed of leveling up. This was something that Bao San deeply understood. 300,000. Chuanjin had no shortage of rich people. Seeing Bao San's bid, Yin Lao Air followed suit. They were all warriors, but Yin Lao Air was more focused on damage output. Whether it was the damage output of Dragon's aura or the debuff of the Dragon's aura, both were more important to Yin Lao Air. 301. There was no need to look. Apart from Mingdu, there was no one else who would bid in such a cheap way. This grandson was just joining in the fun to disgust others. Just like that, the people in Xuanjin began to raise the price one after another. They even taunted and attacked each other. It looked like they were about to tear each other apart. At this moment, Spring said, "I'll pay 100 million. Shut up, all of you." F***CK, Brother Spring, did you sell your wife? Seeing Spring's arrogant bid, everyone was shocked. Spring said in disdain, "Are you guys deaf? Can't you see the class requirement of this pet egg?" Class requirement? F***CK. Everyone who had calmed down hurriedly took a closer look and immediately cursed again. Such an amazing pet actually had a class requirement. Dragon Knight was a hidden branch of knights. Although the name was arrogant and domineering, its skills and attributes were trash. Moreover, there were quite a number of this branch. Many knight players were attracted by the name of this class and went to the forum to curse after changing their class. Therefore, they were also known as cursing knights. Unexpectedly, such an amazing pet was actually exclusive to cursing knights. F***CK. No wonder this lousy class was so trash. It turned out that it was not complete. Chapter 1033. If it was exclusive to other professions, Chuanjin could find one, but as for knights, other than Mu Zixi, there was no one else in Chuanjin. Mu Zixi was a classic example of a weak fighter. She did not specialize in combat, so it would be a waste to give it to her. Wang Yu knew that Mu Zixi was a family woman. This dragon egg was priceless. Not to mention that Mu Zixi was not a dragon knight. Even if she was, if Wang Yu gave the dragon egg to Mu Zixi would still let him sell it. This is a little hard to sell. Wang Yu hugged the dragon egg and was in a dilemma. He was afraid of selling such a rare thing for a cheap price. After all, this thing was a priceless treasure. Wang Yu would not be happy if the price was low. If he did not sell it, he could not use it. He could only look at it but not use it. That would be the most frustrating. Looks like I really have to go to the auction site. Wang Yu muttered to himself. He stuffed the dragon egg back into his bag, then took out the token that Dales had given him and clicked to use it. Dales' behavior was still rough. He tore open the space and dragged Wang Yu in. Once again arriving at the Dragon Emperor Palace, Dales grinned excitedly and said, "Hey, young man, you're really something. You even destroyed Celestial Dragon City." That's good, that's good." Wang Yu sighed and said, "It's just a pity for Long Outyin." "What's there to pity about Long Outyin?" Dales laughed and said, "If he didn't die, we dragons would probably be trapped here for the rest of our lives." Hearing Dale's words, Wang Yu was stunned and asked, "What do you mean?" "Huh?" Dales laughed and said, "Don't worry about these details. Come, this is your reward." At the same time, Wang Yu received a system notification. You have completed the 3rd round of the Awakening mission, Trial of the Brave, Dragon Slaying Divine General. Completion. S. You have gained EXP XXXX reputation. The last part of the Awakening quest was so difficult, yet Dales was so stingy. Wang Yu had to find reinforcements and betray his conscience to harm Long Outyin. In the end, all he got was some reputation points and EXP, not a single piece of equipment. After a bunch of reward notifications appeared, Wang Yu saw the final notification. Your Awakening quest has been completed. Quest rating, S. Please go to the class instructor to receive your Awakening reward. Seeing this prompt, Wang Yu felt a little better. Otherwise, Wang Yu felt that Long Outyin was not worth this little reward. Marshal nephew, don't you think the reward is a little too little? Just as Wang Yu was silently cursing Dales for being stingy, Dales actually grinned and approached him. It turned out that this bastard also knew that he was stingy. Wang Yu nodded firmly. There were thousands of words that he wanted to say. Hee, that's right. I haven't given you the final reward yet. Dales laughed. Oh. Hearing Dale's words, Wang Yu asked in confusion, what other reward is there? Dales pointed to himself and said, it's far away, but it's right in front of you. You? Seeing the direction Dales was pointing at, Wang Yu's head buzzed. Damn, what the hell is this old bastard dragon doing? Why did he reward me by completing a quest? That's right. Dales laughed and said, when Martial God was your age, he brought me out from here. Since you are his successor, the seed of Martial God in your body has awakened. Of course, I have to follow you to travel outside. But won't this affect the game's balance? Wang Yu thought about it and said. Wang Yu was not stupid. Of course, he knew that a good game environment must have a balanced system. What kind of strength did Dales have? Once he went out, wouldn't he be destroyed as he pleased? If he brought this guy out, he was afraid that the first thing the system would do would be to destroy him. After being tricked by NPCs so many times, Wang Yu knew that the greater the temptation, the greater the trap. This kind of thing where the Dragon Emperor fell from the sky, it was best to ask clearly. Otherwise, there might be a big trap hidden. Dales laughed and said, Ha, you don't know this. In order to prevent data overflow, once I go out, my strength will drop to level 200. Level 200 also affects the game's balance. Wang Yu said, for an existence like Dales, even at level 100, not to mention level 200, he would probably be invincible. After all, his strength was sealed, but his combat experience and realm were still there. Let me finish, Dales said anxiously. There are only two ways for me to go out with you now. The first is to become a pet egg for you to bring out. This way, pet egg again? Wang Yu's face changed when he heard this, and he waved his hand to interrupt Dales. A black dragon egg was already troublesome enough. Now that he had an egg of a dragon emperor, how could he deal with it? If a grandmaster of combat could use it, then it would be fine. He could treat it as raising a son in the game in advance. But if it was exclusive to Dragon Knights, he might as well not have it. Then, Wang Yu asked again, what about the second? The second is simple. Dales said, I'll sign a contract as your follower, and you can bring me out legally. Hearing the second method, Wang Yu subconsciously touched his chin. The follower's level could not exceed the employer's. No matter how powerful Dales was, a mere level 50 would not be enough to break the game's balance. Moreover, having a ruthless character like Dales as a follower was not a bad thing. Thinking of this, Wang Yu nodded and said, if that's the case, then it's fine. Dales heard this and said happily, that's good. Good nephew. Hurry up and sign the contract. I've hidden a lot of treasures in the past, and I can't wait to see them. With our relationship, you can choose whichever one you like. I'm not taking you away because I want your stupid treasures. Wang Yu curled his lips and opened the follower contract interface. There were 3 kinds of follower contracts. The first kind was the master-servant contract, which meant that the follower would obey the owner unconditionally. This kind of contract was more expensive, but it was somewhat inhumane. For example, a beautiful follower like Esther, the Knight of the Round Table. It was better if she fell into the hands of Wang Yu, but if she fell into the hands of Chuanjin's group of animals, The second kind was the friendship contract. This kind of contract was more fair. It was to let the follower and the player treat each other as friends. However, within a certain range, the player had the right to force the follower to do certain things. The third kind was the limited time contract, which was equivalent to a mercenary. This kind of contract was to spend money to do things. Wang Yu was a fair person, and Dales was also a Dragon Emperor. In terms of seniority, Wang Yu was still a junior. In this case, he naturally would not choose the first kind. So, Wang Yu pulled out the friendship contract without hesitation. Seeing the contract in Wang Yu's hand, an imperceptible smile flashed across Dales's face. However, Wang Yu did not notice Dales's expression and signed him as his follower. Chapter 1034. As the system notification sounded, the Dragon Emperor's palace suddenly shook. Then, Wang Yu felt like he was taking an elevator. He could clearly feel the Dragon Emperor's palace moving upward rapidly. After a full 10 seconds, the Dragon Emperor's palace finally stopped moving. At that time, the golden wall of the Dragon Emperor's palace quickly turned into golden powder from the center, spreading up and down. As the Dragon Emperor's palace disappeared, Wang Yu saw the blue sea and blue sky outside. At that time, Wang Yu realized that the Dragon Emperor's palace was above the sea. Seeing that the base of the Dragon Emperor's palace was about to disappear, Wang Yu quickly spread his wings and flew up. At this time, Wang Yu suddenly felt his vision darken, as if there was an infinite pressure on his head. Wang Yu was shocked. He looked up and saw a huge island floating above him. There was only one island in the game that could float in the air, and that was Dragon Island. It turned out that the Dragon Emperor's palace was at the bottom of Dragon Island. This is strange. Wang Yu was puzzled. Obviously, although dragons were powerful, their social class was still very primitive. Why would the Dragon Emperor's palace be under Dragon Island? Just as Wang Yu was puzzled, an announcement sounded above the game. System announcement: Dragon City has been destroyed, and the seal suppressing Dragon Island has loosened. An unknown player has unintentionally released the sealed Dragon Emperor while doing a quest, triggering the special plot. Dragon Island reappears. The game will be updated in 30 minutes to launch a new expansion pack, Rise of Dragons. Players, please leave the game within 30 minutes. For players who do not leave within the specified time, the company will not be responsible for any abnormalities in their data. The final right of explanation belongs to the Soaring Dragon Company. Rise of Dragons? What the heck? Is Dragon Island going to be opened? Hearing this news, the players in the game were all excited. Dragon Island was one of the highest leveling places in the game. The lowest level monsters there were above level 80. It was a little too early to open Dragon Island when the average player was only level 45. Not only the players, but even the GMs of the game company were panicking. What? Why did an expansion pack suddenly appear? Long Outyin is dead? Dales was released? What the hell is going on? Long Outyen's betrayal and massacre the entire city was a level 100 storyline, and the opening of Dragon Island was also something that happened after Long Outyen's betrayal. Now that this expansion was triggered, it was clearly brought forward by more than a day or two. Could it be that something went wrong? And so, the GM scrambled to check the information. The results were as expected. After following the clues, there was no abnormality in the system's data, and the culprit was found to be Wang Yu. It's that guy again. Seeing Wang Yu's familiar face, the GMs of the monitoring team nearly burst into tears. Since the moment this guy appeared, he had been stirring up trouble. In the past, it was just a small matter, and everyone did not take it to heart. Now, he actually caused the system to automatically update the Dragon Island expansion pack. Wasn't he ruining their rice bowls? One had to know that the initial planning after the open beta of a game was those patches. Apart from the patches for newly discovered bugs, these expansion packs were enough for the game to be updated for about 2 years. This gave the game developers enough time to develop new scenarios and ensure that they would attract players. However, it had only been half a year since the game's opening, and the expansion pack for Dragon Island had already been released. Wasn't this driving the game developers to death? At this time, the students of the game development team felt like strangling Wang Yu to death. However, Wang Yu was not in the mood to think about this. Seeing the system announcement, Wang Yu was completely dumbfounded. From what the system said, it seemed like he had unintentionally caused a huge disaster. Could it be that he had been tricked by Dales from the very beginning? Thinking of this, the scenes of the mission suddenly flooded into Wang Yu's mind. From a mission that Dales gave him, to the strange position of the Dragon Island that he saw on the Wizard Tower, to the tears that Long Outyin shed before he died, Wang Yu finally came to his senses. Damn it, Celestial Dragon City was the seal that locked the Dragon Island in the sea, and Long Outyin was an important NPC that guarded the seal. As for his own trial mission, it must have been swapped by Dale's. From Simba, he knew that advanced intelligent NPCs had the right to freely distribute the rewards in their hands to any mission. Now that Long Out Yin was dead and Celestial Dragon City was massacred, he was obviously used by Dale's and became Dale's fighter. After knowing the truth, Wang Yu was furious. He went against his conscience and tricked Long Out Yin to death, but he did not expect to play such a dishonorable role. You lied to me? The furious Wang Yu pointed at Dale's, his eyes almost spitting fire. If it was still normal, even if Wang Yu was tricked by an NPC, he would not be so angry. However, it was different this time. Wang Yu already felt guilty for Long Out Yin's death. After knowing that he was used to do something bad, one could imagine how angry Wang Yu was. Ever since Wang Yu started playing games, this was the first time he was so angry at an NPC in the virtual world. Facing Wang Yu's anger, Dale's laughed loudly and said, "Ha ha ha! Little kid, you are so cute. I was tempted by Long Out Yin with the Golden Palace and sealed under the Dragon Island for thousands of years. Today, I am free and in a good mood. Hurry up and scram, or else I will kill you too." Dale stretched his body and flew to the shore. Then he stood on the shore and stroked his hair coquettishly while facing the reflection in the water. Seeing that Dale's was so arrogant and did not even care about his master, Wang Yu chased after Dale's and said with a cold face, "You are my follower. Where do you think you are going?" "Follower? With just you?" "Ha ha!" Dale's turned around and laughed loudly when he heard that. He raised his palm and slapped at him. Wang Yu had played games for so long, but he had never heard of a follower being able to attack the master. Seeing Dale's palm coming at him, he could not help but be shocked. He hurriedly formed a chi wave shield and jumped back to reduce the force. Bang! Dale's palm hit Wang Yu's arm, and the chi wave shield shattered. Wang Yu immediately felt a huge force rush at him, and then he was directly sent flying more than 10 meters away. Only then did he manage to neutralize the force of Dale's attack, and forcefully quick recover to land on the ground. After landing on the ground, Wang Yu looked at Dale's in front of him and felt a sense of helplessness in his heart. Wang Yu had fought against so many bosses, but there had never been anyone who could make Wang Yu feel like this. Even if he was facing the giant dragon Long Out Yin, Wang Yu still had the confidence to win. However, after just one round with Dale's, Wang Yu felt that this guy in front of him was definitely not someone he could deal with. At this moment, Dale saw that his palm did not hurt Wang Yu and could not help but be stunned. Chapter 1035. You're amazing. Dale's looked at Wang Yu meaningfully and said, "If you were at my level, I'm afraid I wouldn't be your opponent." "At your level?" Wang Yu heard this and used detect, only to find that Dale's information was full of question marks. Wang Yu was shocked. "Aren't you my follower? You should be at the same level as me." "Ha ha ha!" Dale's laughed. "Did you forget what contract you signed?" "Contract?" Wang Yu quickly pulled up the follower's information and saw that it was clearly marked with Dale's information. Dragon Emperor, Dragon Warrior, Dale's, LV200, God Tier Boss, Legendary, HP, MP, Skills, Talents. At the bottom of Dale's information, there was a small line of words. Under a fair contract, the follower's strength will not be weakened according to the player's strength. F***CK. Seeing this, Wang Yu was very depressed. Meow. I didn't see this when signing the contract. If I knew, I would have signed the first one with you. Wang Yu said angrily. Haha. Dale's laughed. Nephew, I knew you would sign this contract with me. Why? Wang Yu was stunned. Dale said, Haha, I know people like you the best. I've already called you nephew, and you still want me to be your servant? Wang Yu was speechless. Dale's was right. With Wang Yu's personality, he would never treat a friend as a slave, let alone an elder. He didn't expect this old man to be so scheming. Even so, Wang Yu was still unwilling to admit defeat and said stubbornly, What if I'm not embarrassed? Dale's pointed at himself and said, Do you think I'm stupid? No. Wang Yu shook his head. This cunning fellow was more insidious than any NPC Wang Yu had ever met. How could this fellow be stupid? That's it then. Dales chuckled and said, I won't agree to the first contract you signed. This. Wang Yu was speechless. How could there be such a lowly NPC in this world? At this time, Dale spoke again. You're not bad, kid. You let me out. I'm in a good mood, so I'll let you live. Scram, don't let me see you again. When Wang Yu heard this, he said angrily, I went through so much trouble to release you and sign a follower contract with you. You want to leave just like that? What's wrong? Do you think you have the ability to make me stay? Dales grinned. Although Dales also knew that Wang Yu was not easy to deal with, it was just that. If they really fought, with the difference of 150 levels, Dales could crush Wang Yu like an ant. How do you know if you don't try? Wang Yu followed up with his fists at his waist and rushed toward Dales. Who was Wang Yu? A grandmaster. When a martial artist reached his level, he had already reached a level where he was fearless. The most taboo thing was to know when to retreat. Fear was like a rolling snowball. Once it started, one would be overcautious and indecisive when faced with a problem, afraid of failure. In the end, one would not be able to withstand even the slightest setback. Therefore, failure was not scary. What was scary was retreat. Even if Wang Yu knew that he was far from being Dales' match, he still had to give it his all. Moreover, Dales had not moved for 1,000 years. Now that he had been reduced to level 200, he definitely would not be able to adapt to his current state. It was still unknown who would emerge victorious. Oomph, you're asking for it. Seeing that Wang Yu did not know what was good for him, Dales snorted and threw a punch at the charging Wang Yu. Dales was much taller and bullier than Wang Yu. He had long arms and legs. Before Wang Yu could reach him, Dales' fist had already landed on Wang Yu's face. Seeing that Wang Yu was about to be hit, Wang Yu lowered his head and dodged Dales' raised arm. He cut into Dales' chest and stomped on Dales' knee with Thunder Stomp. Dales' level was far higher than Wang Yu's. Even with a skill like Thunder Stomp, which had a high priority, it only made Dales pause for a moment. Wang Yu had already used the impact of Thunder Stomp to leap up. With a Rising Dragon Punch, he struck Dales' chin. -435-1411, two damage values floated above Dales' head at almost the same time. Because of Wang Yu's skill completion, he ignored the difference in level and defense bonuses. Therefore, Wang Yu's damage was very high. Against a normal boss, a normal attack would deal tens of thousands of damage. However, two powerful skills only dealt less than 2,000 damage to Dales. From this, it could be seen that the defense of Dales' scales was frighteningly high. If he was in his dragon form, Wang Yu's attacks would probably only deal -1 damage to Dales. But now, even if Wang Yu didn't deal damage, Wang Yu's heart was filled with powerlessness. After all, a boss of this level had hundreds of millions of health points. This little damage was almost negligible. In just a moment, he had taken 2 hits from Wang Yu. Dales was stunned at first, then immediately launched a counterattack. He bent his arms and was about to hug Wang Yu. Dales was a level 200 legendary boss. Even if he wasn't an agility-type boss, his current speed was still frighteningly high. Wang Yu couldn't dodge, so he could only activate Flash and flash behind Dales. He used Eagle Stomp on the back of Dales' neck. -22-44-88-100. The triple damage, plus the additional damage from the combo, only took a few hundred points of Dales' health. At this time, Dales had already turned around and grabbed the air. A golden dragon claw shadow grabbed towards Wang Yu, who had activated Qinggong. Dales' attack was extremely fast. The phantom dragon claw appeared in front of Wang Yu in the blink of an eye. Unable to dodge, Wang Yu activated his inner breath and raised his palms. It was the enhanced version of raging waves that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas. Instantly, huge waves slammed towards the dragon claw. Boom! A dazzling light flashed, and Dales' dragon claw was neutralized by raging waves. Wang Yu's mana was also depleted. At the same time, Wang Yu suddenly felt a pressure on his head. He panicked and tried to roll away. However, the difference of level 150 was quite terrifying. While Wang Yu felt the pressure, Dales' huge palm had already slammed into the top of Wang Yu's head. Damn, he's a level 200 boss after all. Wang Yu sighed and prepared to die. But at this time, Dales's palm that was about to smash Wang Yu's head suddenly turned and formed a claw. It grabbed Wang Yu's neck and directly lifted Wang Yu into the air. Looking at Wang Yu, who was holding onto his arm with an unyielding expression, Dales coldly snorted. "Umph, I can't believe I underestimated you just now. You actually made me suffer. Are you gonna F King Scram or not?" Oh. Chapter 1037. The hands were the most sensitive and flexible parts of the human body. The web between the thumb and the index finger was a vital part of the hand. Even Dales, who had the body of a dragon emperor, grimaced in pain after being bitten by Wang Yu. In pain, Dales grabbed Wang Yu's hand and swung it, throwing Wang Yu to the side. Looking at the bloody gums on his hand, Dales glared at Wang Yu with his bell-like eyes. Shocked and angry, he said, "Are you crazy?" "Umph." Wang Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled. Then, he pounced at Dales again. Dales took a step back and swatted Wang Yu's head with his palm leaf-sized palm like a fly swatter. However, Wang Yu did not dodge Dales's attack. Instead, he charged forward without fear of death. "You bastard!" Seeing this, Dales's pupils shrank. He hurriedly retracted his strength and pushed Wang Yu to the side. Seeing Dales change his attack midway, Wang Yu revealed a smile. Although Wang Yu was strong, he was not arrogant. Wang Yu knew his and Dales's strength. If Dales wanted to kill Wang Yu, it would not be easy, but it would not be difficult. For example, if Dales had not shown mercy, Wang Yu would have died. Would the system's NPCs show mercy to players? As long as Wang Yu was not a fool, he would not have the slightest hope for these shameless NPCs. Therefore, Dales did not dare to attack Wang Yu because of old affection or conscience. Because of this, Wang Yu roughly judged that Dales might not dare to kill him. Therefore, Wang Yu bit Dales, trying to provoke him. Sure enough, the follower contract was the system's rule. No matter how disobedient Dales was, he would not dare to kill him. If that was the case, then it would be easy. In terms of skills, even if Dales was a god boss, there was still a gap between him and Wang Yu. With his HP guaranteed, he could do whatever he wanted. No matter how high Tal's HP was, he would still be worn down to death if he kept attacking. Seeing Dales retract his strength, Wang Yu lowered his head and suddenly accelerated. He rushed under Dales's palm. At the same time, he used his right hand as a knife and poked Dales's wrist. 2222. It seemed that the dragon scales on Dales's wrist were relatively weak. Wang Yu actually dealt more than 2,000 damage. "Ow, ow, you stinking brat." Dales was attacked again. He roared and slammed his hands together in the middle, wanting to smash Wang Yu's head. However, when his palms were less than 5 centimeters away from Wang Yu's head, Dales's eyes narrowed. He forcibly stopped his hands on both sides of Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu knew that Dales would not dare to attack, so he did not dodge. Instead, he casually swung his long sword at Dales's throat. Dales was shocked and angry. He pressed his palms down to grab Wang Yu. However, during this pause, Wang Yu took a step forward and held onto Dales's waist with both hands. He then kneed him. Dales was nearly 3 meters tall. Wang Yu's burly figure was just like a child in front of Dales. Therefore, because of the limitations of his body, Wang Yu's knee kick, which was originally meant to attack the face, was executed in a lower direction. It hit Dales's crotch. God knew if dragons and humans had the same structure, but judging from Long Out Yin and the Dragonblood Spear God, dragons and humans did not have reproductive isolation. After Dales turned into a human, his crotch should also be a vital point. Wang Yu kneed. Dales suddenly had a strange expression on his face. He then stopped attacking Wang Yu. "Ah, you bastard! I'll kill you." After a few seconds, Dales roared and raised his leg to kick Wang Yu's face. Wang Yu chuckled. He pointed at his head and laughed. "Come on, let's see if you dare." Roar. Dales glared at Wang Yu and put down his leg. It couldn't be helped. Dales really did not dare to hit Wang Yu. Once an NPC signed a contract and became a player's follower, the player was basically his master. Even if it was a fair contract without so many restrictions, the follower could not kill the master. As the saying went, the dragon was doing it, and the system was watching. In the game, if Dales killed Wang Yu, the system would definitely kill Dales without hesitation. Wang Yu was a player and could be resurrected after death. Dales was different. A super NPC of his level was basically an important background character in the game world. He was involved in many quests and system update conditions. Therefore, Dales' life could be said to be a one-time use. Even if he could be refreshed, the refresh period was infinite. Was Dales going to exchange his dragon life for a player who could resurrect indefinitely just to prove that he would rather die than lose his freedom? Dales' weakness was seen through by Wang Yu, and the battle immediately changed. Wang Yu knew that Dales did not dare to kill him, so he had no scruples. He simply gave up on defense and blindly attacked. Dales, on the other hand, was worried. He had to be careful even when defending, for fear that he would kill Wang Yu. Indeed, Tulls was a level 200 celestial boss. Even if Wang Yu were to defend against a mere level 50 player, with just a little bit of effort, she would most likely die if she used only a little bit of strength. It could be seen that Wang Yu's crazy attacks created double the pressure on Dales. Poor Dales, the Dragon Emperor, had become the ace training partner in the gym. Even a clay figurine had a temper, not to mention the dragon race, which had always been ill-tempered, especially Dale, who had the worst temper among the dragons. Wang Yu's crazy attacks finally made Dales anxious. Dale shouted with red eyes, "Are you done?" As he said that, he grabbed at Wang Yu, who was attacking him in Wuji. Wang Yu naturally knew that Dales would not dare to kill him no matter how angry he was. However, if he was caught by this guy, it would be a different outcome. After all, in the game world, there were many people who could not be killed. The way to deal with such people was surprisingly consistent, and that was to seal them for thousands of years. Dales was one of the victims. Wang Yu had no doubt that this shameless guy would lock him up until he died if he caught him. Looking at Dales' dragon claw, Wang Yu quickly flashed backward to avoid Dales' grasp. At that time, he could only hear Dales muttering, "You're crazy. I'm not playing with you anymore." As he spoke, Dales tore open the space, entered it, and disappeared in front of Wang Yu. Chapter 1038. Dales was a big boss that had lived for tens of thousands of years. Naturally, he would not stoop to the level of a young man like Wang Yu. He could not afford to fight, but he could not hide. "If you don't want to leave, then I'll leave." Wang Yu, who had reacted, looked at the place where Dales disappeared, speechless. Dales had the ability to break through the void. If he wanted to leave, Wang Yu could not stop him. Meow. Tripitaka even had a band-tightening spell to catch a monkey. His follower left him and ran, and he could only watch. At this time, Wang Yu's mood was indescribable. Sigh. After a long time, Wang Yu sighed and looked at Dales' name in his follower column helplessly. He shook his head and went offline. As soon as Wang Yu went offline, he saw Mu Zixian hugging her computer angrily. "What's wrong?" Seeing that Mu Zixian was not in a good mood, Wang Yu went up to her and asked. "Sai, don't mention it." Mu Zixian said, "This system update will take a week." "A week? Why is it taking so long?" Wang Yu asked in disbelief. Mu Zixian said helplessly, "It seems like Rise of Dragons is a later expansion pack. This sudden early release probably caught the game company off guard." "Oh, no wonder." Wang Yu touched his chin thoughtfully. Although Wang Yu was not interested in these things, he had a wife who used to be a customer service employee. Updates for expansion packs were very different from normal updates. Normal updates would only update missions and activities. It would take a few hours at most. Sometimes the update could be completed online. However, updates for expansion packs usually opened up new races or new scenarios. There were many aspects of the design, so the update time was longer. The Rise of the Dragons expansion pack was supposed to be released 2 years later. As the game was forced to update ahead of schedule, there were many details that had yet to be perfected. Moreover, there were many other data that the game developers had to rework. As a result, the update would take up to a week, and the game developers had to work overtime to complete it. Huh. Then, Wang Yu smiled and said, 1 week is 1 week. Isn't it just making less money? Is there a need to be angry? Mu Zixian shop's business was quite good. If she didn't open for business for a week, she would lose a lot of money. Wang Yu thought that Mu Zixian was angry about this matter. Unexpectedly, Mu Zixian said, "It's not because of that." "Then why?" Wang Yu asked as he scratched his head. Mu Zixian only used games as a tool to earn money. She wasn't like those degenerates from Chuanjin who were addicted to games. Wang Yu really couldn't figure out why she was angry. "Take a look." Mu Zixian angrily stood up and passed the laptop to Wang Yu. Wang Yu glanced at the screen in bewilderment and was instantly speechless. For ordinary people, a week was just a matter of waiting for a weekend, but for gaming otakus, it was a nightmarish torment. Originally, releasing a new expansion pack was also a good thing for the players. However, the game had only been released for less than half a year. The players had yet to awaken and explore the game to its limits. Releasing an expansion pack at this time was purely a one-time move. Of course, the development of a new expansion pack might add more interesting content, but the long update time was unacceptable to players. Players could tolerate it if it was only for a day or two, but if it was for a week, the gains would not make up for the losses. The game company also knew that this long update time would be chased and scolded by the players. Therefore, when they released the update announcement, they explained the reason for the long update time on the official website and the forum. It had to be said that the game company's move was ingenious. After the players who had prepared a bunch of vulgarities to greet the game company found out the specific reason, they all shifted their anger to the guy who released the new expansion pack. Of course, the greetings were more intense. Especially on the forum, there were many alt accounts jumping up and down in various scolding posts. The content was also very simple. In summary, it could be summed up in one sentence. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. The one who prompted Long Outyin to massacre the city and release the new expansion pack for dragons is Iron Ox. Everyone go and scold him. In fact, the players weren't stupid. They would usually ignore such low-level provocation, but they couldn't stand the scolding. Moreover, there weren't many people in the game who could do such a thing, and Wang Yu was one of them. Therefore, the post still had some credibility. At this time, the players on the forum were scolding aimlessly. They also needed a breakthrough point. Therefore, when they saw the comments of these alt accounts, many people began to call out Wang Yu by name. After all, on the forum, killing an entire family was just an alt account and a keyboard. There were also many people who wanted to challenge Wang Yu to a duel, let alone scolding him. Being crude and blunt was indeed a little unsightly. However, a martial arts expert like Wang Yu naturally wouldn't stoop to the level of the keyboard warriors. He said calmly, "I don't know who wants to set me up at this time. Do you still need to ask?" You could tell by looking at the alt account. "It's someone from the apocalypse," Mu Zixian said unhappily. Mu Zixian said impatiently, "It must be because you didn't give the Castellan to Dugu Jiuqiang, and he's holding a grudge against you." Wang Yu had mentioned the matter of the Castellan to Wuji and the others in the guild channel, so Mu Zixian had also heard about it. "It's not him." Wang Yu shook his head and pointed at an alt called Dugu Xiaoqiang and said, "Dugu Jiuqiang was able to fight with Chuanjin for so long. He isn't an idiot. If he wanted to set me up, would he use this alt account?" This wasn't the first time that Wang Yu and Dugu Jiuqiang had met each other. Regarding Wang Yu's strength, Dugu Jiuqiang had always been very afraid of him. Wang Yu could also feel it in their daily conversations. Moreover, Dugu Jiuqiang was also a smart person. He knew that he shouldn't treat someone he couldn't deal with as an enemy. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, Dugu Jiuqiang definitely wouldn't make himself an enemy. "I understand the logic." Mu Zixian heard this and said, "What if he also knows that you think so? You owe a Castellan, and others don't have such a big grudge against you." He. Wang Yu laughed and said, "It's because I owe him a Castellan, so he can't offend me." "Why?" Mu Zixian asked curiously. The control of a main city was worth a lot more than equipment. Wang Yu had swindled Dugu Jiuqiang's Castellan. This was basically a blood feud. With Dugu Jiuqiang's personality, how could he not even dare to offend Wang Yu? Wang Yu said calmly, "Because Dugu Jiuqiang sent me a message, but I didn't reply at all." Just as Mu Zixian said, The control of a city was worth a lot more than equipment. As long as there was a trace of hope, Dugu Jiuqiang definitely wouldn't give up. So if Wang Yu had flatly rejected Dugu Jiuqiang, it was possible that Dugu Jiuqiang harbor grudge. However, with Wang Yu's ambiguous attitude, Dugu Jiuqiang didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. It had to be known that Wang Yu had been taken away by Long Outyin. What kind of status did Long Outyin have? The place that he took Wang Yu to was most likely a dragon's lair and a tiger's den. What if Wang Yu was in the middle of a battle and couldn't find a time to reply? Doing so would be the same as cutting off his path of retreat. Chapter 1039. As the saying goes, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to defend against a stab in the dark. If the opponent stood in front of you and stabbed you, at least you would have a target to fight back. But if the opponent was hiding in the dark, you wouldn't even be able to touch the target's shadow. How disgusting would that be? Especially now, you didn't even know who your opponent was or what his goal was. Mu Zixian was a cautious woman. Seeing that Wang Yu was being targeted by this kind of person, she couldn't help but worry for Wang Yu. However, Wang Yu smiled and said, "It's not a big deal. Let them scold me. Anyway, they didn't wrongly accuse me. I'll just take it as them clapping for me." Mu Zixian was speechless. It had to be said that the saying, "one is marked by the company one keeps," was very reasonable. Wang Yu was not a saint who was untainted by even a speck of dust. After mixing with the people of the Chuanjin sect for a long time, he would more or less be affected. For example, he treated other people's scolding as praise. This behavior was very similar to the people from Chuanjin. Mu Zixian didn't feel uncomfortable with the change in Wang Yu's personality. Instead, she felt that Wang Yu's current appearance was much cuter than Qianqian's taciturn personality. It seemed that women liked bad boys. This sentence was also very reasonable. Those students who were treated as good guys by girls must pay attention. Teacher Niu will give you an important point here. As for why Mu Zixian also liked the previous Wang Yu, it was very simple. They were both taciturn. People like Teacher Niu, who were handsome, elegant, and had unparalleled martial arts skills, were called silly and adorable. Those who were ugly and had no good points were called idiots. Let's get back to the main topic. Wang Yu and his wife were stuck together. At this moment, the doorbell suddenly rang in the living room. Coming. Before Mu Zixian could get up to open the door, she heard the girl's bedroom door open. Following that, there was the sound of running footsteps. The door opened. Mali's voice came from outside. Sister Nana, how did you get here so quickly? What's she doing here?" Hearing that it was Yang Na, Wang Yu was stunned. Just as he was about to go out to see what was going on, he heard Yang Na say, "You dare to open the door wearing this? What if it's a courier?" Wang Yu was speechless. He sat back down and signaled Mu Zixian to go out and take a look. Meow. This pony had the habit of running around in its underwear. It was simply improper. Meanwhile, Mu Zixian was suddenly a little flustered as she said, "Little Na, you're way too fast. I've been busy browsing the forums, and I haven't even cleaned up yet." When Wang Yu heard this, he was dumbfounded again. "What are you going to do now?" Mu Zixian stood up and opened the cupboard to pack the clothes as she said, "It's us. Us. Where are you going? Isn't the system going to be updated for a week? We've agreed to go out and play for a few days." As Mu Zixian spoke, she took out a new set of unopened clothes and threw it to Wang Yu. "Change into this and go wash your face." Wang Yu took the clothes and said reluctantly, "Did you make an appointment? Why didn't I know? Is there a need for you to know?" Mu Zixian turned and asked Wang Yu. "No, there's no need. I'm just asking." Wang Yu shook his head hurriedly and quickly put on the clothes. Then he thought for a moment and said, "Are Wuji and the rest going?" It wasn't that Wang Yu wanted to gather everyone to play together, but it was only natural for Wang Yu and Mu Zixian to go out. However, Mu Zixian clearly wanted to bring Li Shui, Yang Na, and the rest along. It was rather awkward for a man to go out with a group of women. These kinds of people were either gay or scum who pretended to be gay to get sex. Wang Yu was a dignified gentleman, and he despised these kinds of people most. Therefore, at this time, he had to bring a few companions. At the very least, they looked normal. I'm not going. I'm bringing the ladies out to play. Why would I bring them along? Mu Zixian said matter-of-factly. I'm not a lady either. If you want me to go with you alone, I won't go. Wang Yu wanted to cry, but had no tears. All right. Mu Zixian was very understanding. Seeing Wang Yu's reaction, she knew what he was thinking. So, she waved her hand and said, Then you go ahead and inform them. We'll tell them to gather in Jiangbei City tomorrow. Jiangbei City? Hearing the 3 words Jiangbei City, Wang Yu's head buzzed. He couldn't help but ask, Who picked this place? When traveling, it was either to see the historical sites or to see the cultural landscape. Jiangbei City was just an unknown small city. It wasn't a good place to go. What made Wang Yu's heart palpitate was that the Li family was in Jiangbei City. The Li family had always been a high-profile person, and they had a big business. Many places in Jiangbei City were owned by the Li family. This trip to Jiangbei City would inevitably meet people that Wang Yu didn't want to meet. Little Na, she said she wanted to see pear blossoms. Mu Zixian said. Wang Yu was speechless. After the Qingming festival, the pear blossoms were in full bloom. Jiangbei's pear blossoms were very famous. Although it was reasonable for women to like to see flowers, Wang Yu always felt that Yang Na was deliberately looking for trouble. What's wrong with you? Seeing that Wang Yu's face was a little unfriendly, Mu Zixian asked softly. No, nothing. I'll call Wu Ji and the others. Wang Yu quickly waved his hand. The group of people in Xuanzhen, except for Mingdu, were relatively idle at work. At this time, everyone was worried about how to survive these 7 days. Once they heard that they were going to go out to play, everyone said that they would definitely be there. Even Mingdu, who was busy with work, said that it was no problem. Oh, you don't have to work? Wang Yu was puzzled. It's okay. I'll just give the leader a big red packet. Mingdu's style was still shocking. In games, in order to promote relationships, offline gatherings were common. Looking at Mingdu's clean and efficient methods, it should not be the first time he did this. While Wang Yu was contacting the other people in Xuanzhen, Mu Zixian had already tidied herself up. She even put on makeup, which was rare. After tidying up, Mu Zixian pushed the door open and walked out. At this time, the girls in the studio had also tidied up. They were sitting in the living room and chatting with Yang Na. They are all dressed. Come out. Seeing that everyone was fully dressed, Mu Zixian shouted into the bedroom. Only then did Wang Yu walk out with a red face. He glared at Ma Li and said, You better be careful next time. TSK. Ma Li rolled her eyes and asked Mu Zixian, Has the landlord never been to the beach? Does he feel shy when he sees girls in bikinis? Hearing that, everyone was speechless. Chapter 1040. Mu Zixian was the one who suggested this outing. Mu Zixian and Wang Yu had been married for a long time. When they were free, they were so poor that they couldn't even afford to eat. Now that they were rich, they spent all their time in the game. Other than eating and sleeping, they barely saw each other when they were in the same room. Therefore, Wang Yu and Mu Zixian had never really gone out to play. Moreover, the 4 girls in the studio were now hell-bent on following Mu Zixian. Mu Zixian was not only a landlady, but also the boss behind the scenes of the studio. It wasn't easy to get a long update. As the boss, Mu Zixian couldn't let her employees stay at home for a week. She treated it as a holiday for the 4 girls. As for Wai Yang not tagged along. After all, they were from the same guild and were neighbors. Their relationship wasn't that far, so of course, she would tag along. They didn't know if Yang Na did it on purpose. Now that they had decided on the location, they packed up and left the house before the sky turned dark. Jiangbei City wasn't far from El City. It was only a few hours' drive away. It was the Pear Blossom Festival in Jiangbei. When they arrived at Jiangbei, there were direct buses everywhere. However, because they had to wait for the rest of Xuanzhen, they found a hotel next to the bus station to stay. The next day, Wu Ji and the others arrived as scheduled. It hadn't been long since they last met. Everyone hadn't changed much. However, behind Chun Xiang, there was a beautiful woman. The woman was carrying a cute little girl in her arms. Needless to say, they were Chun Xiang and Chun Nu. They had heard the bastards in Xuanzhen say that Chun Xiang was beautiful. Now that they saw her today, she was indeed worthy of her reputation. Ah, everyone is here, right? Chun Xiang, long time no see. Seeing that everyone from the last gathering had arrived, everyone happily introduced themselves and greeted each other. Not yet. Little Fei isn't here yet. Wang Yu took out his phone and glanced at it. Little Fei, your brother is coming too? Everyone was surprised. Since they were so familiar with Evildoers Run Wild, they naturally knew of Evildoers Run Wild. Wang Yu shook his head and said, No, it's Chopper 345. Oh. Everyone nodded. Chopper was a newcomer to Chuanjin. Although he was a newcomer, due to his excellent forging skills, he was very popular in Chuanjin. When everyone heard that Chopper was coming, they couldn't help but look forward to it. 100 yuan. I bet Chopper is a handsome guy. Chun Xiang smiled and raised his eyebrows at everyone. He rolled up his sleeves and made a gesture of placing a bet. Everyone knew Chun Xiang's temper very well. Not only was he wretched, but he was also sinister. He was the kind of person who would cover his nose and look at others when he farted. Now that he dared to make a bet, he must have come prepared. When Wang Yu and the others saw Chun Xiang laughing, they all turned their heads and ignored her. Chun Xiang wasn't surprised that everyone was ignoring him because his eyes were already locked onto Place One's Pride, who was teasing his daughter with snacks. Sure enough, when a Place One's Pride heard Chun Xiang's words, he stuffed the snacks into Chun's daughter's hand and then laughed. Chun, you guessed wrong this time. I bet 100 yuan. Chopper is definitely not handsome. Okay, give me the money. Chun Xiang smiled and reached out to Place One's Pride. Place One's Pride subconsciously took out the money. The moment he stuffed the money into Chun Xiang's hand, Place One's Pride suddenly reacted. F***CKY. Chun Xiang pointed at a handsome, chocolate-colored young man who was looking around and asked, Chick, do you think that kid is handsome? Place One's Pride looked at the young man and said, And he's quite handsome. That's it. Chun Xiang snatched the money from Place One's Pride's hand and shouted at the handsome guy not far away, Hey, Chopper. This is Chuanjin. Please answer if you hear me. When the handsome guy heard Chun Xiang shout, he suddenly turned around and saw Wang Yu and the others. He smiled awkwardly and walked over quickly. Place One's Pride was furious. F***CK. You're shameless. Nonsense. Who's going to play with you if I'm shameless? Can't you see that everyone else is silent? Chun Xiang laughed. F***CK. You bunch of scum. Place One's Pride clenched his fist. So you're no good. You're Place One's Pride, right? Brother Chun, third brother. While Chun Xiang and Place One's Pride were joking, Chopper had already walked in front of everyone. Since everyone didn't adjust their in-game appearances, they looked similar to their in-game appearances. Chopper easily called out everyone's names. In the end, Chopper said in surprise, I didn't expect that you guys don't adjust your appearances in the game. Nonsense. Place One's Pride said snappily, Do you think we're all like you, hiding our heads and tails and not daring to show our faces? Ugh. Seeing that Place One's Pride was inexplicably angry, Chopper said in an aggrieved tone, I have to adjust my appearance. I'm always chased by girls, and I'm also very distressed. F***CK. Seeing how arrogant Chopper was, the Chuanjin players were completely convinced. As expected of someone who came from Chuanjin, such an adorable-looking guy was shameless when he spoke. However, before everyone could express their enthusiasm, a beautiful girl ran to Chopper's side and said, Handsome, give me your WeChat number. WTF. Seeing this, everyone was speechless. It seemed that this guy was different from them. Whether he was one of them or not remained to be seen. I told you, it's better to be in the game. After sending the girl away awkwardly, Chopper showed a helpless expression. I don't know why, but I suddenly have the urge to beat you up. The single people from Chuanjin said with a dark expression. Chopper, after the joke, Wang Yu waved his hand and said, All right, stop fooling around. Chopper is here, and everyone is here. Let's go. What's the hurry? Sister Meng isn't here yet, Yang Na suddenly said. Sister Meng? Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. She's coming as well? Yang Na asked curiously. Aren't you all old friends? Don't you know that Sister Ming is from Jiangbei? She was the one who suggested coming to Jiangbei. What? Hearing Yang Na's words, the people from Qiuanjin were once again surprised. Although the people from Qiuanjin were old friends with Linglong Ming, that was only limited to when Duga Shaoling was still around. At that time, Qiuanjin had just been established, and they did not have any offline gatherings. Therefore, they had never seen Linglong Ming in person. Now that they heard that the host was Linglong Ming, they suddenly had the urge to turn around and leave. However, at that moment, they heard a screech of brakes, and a huge MPV stopped in front of them. Then, they heard the sound of a car door opening, and a beautiful young woman jumped out of the car. The woman was only in her late 20s. Her hair was spiked up, and she looked very capable. Although she was beautiful, the expression on her face had a domineering temperament. Hiss. Chapter 1041. Everyone turned to look at the woman and exclaimed in unison, "You're Linglong Ming?" If she hadn't spoken first, no one would have recognized her. Such a beautiful lady was actually that female hooligan, Linglong Ming. Disregarding everything else, just her appearance alone was much better than her in-game appearance. Could she be like Chopper, afraid of being chased for her phone? That was possible. But with Linglong Ming's personality, it was more likely that she would chase after others to give her phone. Exquisite Dream chuckled when she heard the words of the Qiuanjin group. She accurately flicked the cigarette, but in her hand into a nearby trash can. Then, she asked with a smile, "You can even recognize this?" Of course. Everyone said, "With your temperament, as long as you move, we'll be able to recognize you from 800 li away." Indeed, although Linglong Ming's appearance was completely different from in-game, her temperament hadn't changed at all. It was fine if she didn't move or speak, and everyone just thought of her as a beautiful lady. But the moment she spoke, her aura changed. The people from the Quanjin sect had been hanging out with Linglong Ming for a long time. Even though this was the first time they met in real life, everyone could still tell that Linglong Ming had an arrogant and domineering aura. What they didn't expect was that Linglong Ming was so much better looking in real life. One had to know that the appearance adjustment system was designed for female players. Girls all loved to be beautiful, so who wouldn't make themselves more beautiful? However, this girl was doing the opposite. As expected of someone from the Qiuanjin sect, she was always so different from the rest. That's true. Linglong Ming laughed and said, "You guys are almost the same as in-game, especially you, old cow. You haven't changed at all." Wang Yu said awkwardly, "I didn't know there was an appearance adjustment system." Everyone, damn, they forgot that she was a newbie in the game. After exchanging greetings, Linglong Ming snapped her fingers and opened the car door. "All right, everyone get in. Let's go eat first. Then I'll bring you around Jiangbei for a few days." Yes. Everyone nodded and got into the car. It had to be said that Exquisite Dream was quite generous as a host. She directly drove the Qiuanjin group to a luxuriously decorated hotel. The name of the hotel was very interesting. It was called Corporal Lycien. Compared to those XXX star hotels, it was much more high-end. Qiuanjin was either an otaku, a student, or a jobless vagrant. Just like Wang Yu and Mu Zixian, none of them had seen much of the world. They only felt that since Linglong Ming was bringing them to live there, they should just follow her obediently. However, Wuji was a person who had seen the world. Seeing the name of the hotel, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Wow, old Ming, you are really rich." What do you mean? Hearing this, everyone asked one by one. Wuji said, "Corporal Lycien, do you know Li XX? Most people can't afford to stay in the Li family's flagship hotel." Hiss. Mu Zixian sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "How much would that cost?" "A standard room costs about 3,000 a night." Wuji thought for a moment and said, "This." Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. 3,000 was half a month's salary for an ordinary person. If more than 10 people stayed, even if 2 people shared a room, it would still cost tens of thousands a night. In a week, it would be hundreds of thousands. Although everyone had earned quite a lot of money in the game, and could be considered rich. This kind of spending still made these nouveau riche a little speechless. Huh. Exquisite Dream laughed and said, "This hotel is not bad. I've decided. My female comrades, an old cow will stay in one room. You bastards will stay in one room. How about 2 rooms? It's not expensive for a week." Damn. Wang Yu is sweating profusely. Just find a random hotel. Why we have to squeeze in here? To prove that we have deep feelings for each other. Exquisite Dream turned her head and winked at Wang Yu and Mu Zixin. Mu Zixin shook her head helplessly. This Exquisite Dream was still the same as in the game. Every day, she would be indecent. While they were talking, Exquisite Dream had already parked her car at the entrance of the hotel. Seeing Exquisite Dream's car, the security guards at the entrance all came forward and stood respectfully on both sides of the car. Hey, what era are we in? This kind of thing is still popular in hotels. Seeing this situation, everyone could not help but secretly laugh. Get out of the car. Exquisite Dream called out to everyone, opened the car door, and jumped out. At this moment, everyone below the car said in unison, "Greetings, eldest Mississippi." Hearing this, everyone in the car was immediately dumbfounded. Eldest? Eldest Miss? Damn, they really could not tell that Exquisite Dream's family background was so illustrious. Such a female gangster's hidden identity was actually the young master of the Lee group. This was 2F** King fantastical. Logically speaking, with Exquisite Dream's behavior, it was more accurate to say that she was the boss of the underworld. As for being the daughter of a rich family, she was far from it. Just as everyone was in a state of shock, the hotel manager ran over in a panic and said, "Eldest Miss, why are you here today?" "I'm here to pick up a few friends to play." Saying that, Exquisite Dream greeted the people in the car. Everyone who reacted also got out of the car. The manager nodded and bowed. "In the future, you just need to give the order and we will do it. I don't need you to pick up people. Stop the car for me and clear the top floor for me." Saying that, Exquisite Dream casually threw the key to the manager. And yes. The manager took the key and nodded repeatedly. Ling Long Meng's heroic spirit left everyone dumbfounded, clearing the top floor to receive guests. This boldness, this domineering. Could this be the legendary domineering CEO? As despicable as Mingdu was, he immediately cried out, "Sister, I feel like I'm our father's long-lost son. Quickly take me to see our father. In the future, if anyone dares to set up a stall in front of our house, I will be the first to destroy them. Get lost." Exquisite Dream heard that and glared at Mingdu. That's right. To place one's pride looked at Mingdu with disdain and said, "Oldly, get lost. I think Sister Meng needs a little fresh meat like me as a son-in-law." F***CKU. Didn't you just call Chun father-in-law? F***CK. As if you didn't call me that. Following that, the two of them began to quarrel with each other. Chun Xiang's face was livid while Exquisite Dream's face was filled with helplessness. Wang Yu, on the other hand, asked Yang Na with a cold face, "You knew from the beginning that she was from the Li family?" There were not many prominent families in Jiangbei, and the Li family was one of them. With such a business, there would not be a second Li family. In all honesty, I definitely did not know. Yang Na swore, if she was from the Li family, how could she not know Nian Luyun? Nian Luyun? Chapter 1042. It would have been fine if Yang Na hadn't mentioned Nian Luyun, but now that the kid was mentioned, Wang Yu suddenly remembered that Nian Luyun seemed to have been there when he first met Ling Longmeng. Although it was Wu Ji who asked Ling Longmeng to go, Ling Longmeng's reaction to Nian Luyun was still a little strange. Nian Luyun was a famous martial artist. He had many fans under the hype of watching fish underwater. In addition, the young man was also handsome. He was a true power and idol. Ling Longmeng, who would harass everyone she met. Not only did she not show the enthusiasm that a normal person would have when meeting Nian Luyun, but in the subsequent meetings, Ling Longmeng never flirted with Nian Luyun. No one noticed it before, but now that they thought about it, these two people were indeed a little strange. Thinking of this, Wang Yu walked to Ling Longmeng and asked, "Where's your brother?" I'm the only daughter of my family. I don't have a brother. Linglong Meng replied in surprise. Yes, I'm our dad's illegitimate child, Mingdu said shamelessly. Wang Yu grabbed Mingdu by the collar and threw him to the side. There's only one person with the surname, Li in Jiangbei. Don't tell me you don't know that Nian Luyan? Nian Luyan? Sister Ming, is that your brother? Everyone heard Wang Yu's words and couldn't help but ask. Nian Luyan left a deep impression on everyone. After all, he was the only hero who had faced Wang Yu head-on. Although he ended up in a miserable state, he was extremely strong, especially after seeing the performance of Nian Liuyun's team in the competition. Everyone remembered this opponent. Oh, Linglong Ming heard this and said, Him? He's the child of my second uncle's family. Old Li's family only has this one seedling. Why would they let him interact with our family? I'm not familiar with him. Hearing Linglong Ming said this, everyone looked embarrassed. The Chuanjian people were all smart people. They didn't need Linglong Ming to explain in detail. Basically, they had already imagined half of it. The more ancient a family was, the stronger the concept of carrying on the family line, and the heavier the patriarchal atmosphere. Old Li's family was so big, yet they only had one son. Of course, Nian Yuyin's family would receive preferential treatment, while exquisite Meng's family, who was the eldest son of the first wife, would be pushed aside. As the saying goes, in troubled times, only the young are passed on to the wise, and in prosperous times, only the wise are passed on to the young. In times of war, in order to prevent outsiders from stirring up trouble in the name of the eldest son, the family business had to be passed down to the eldest son of the first wife. In times of peace, the development of the family was the most important. Naturally, the family business would be passed down to whoever had the most potential. Not to mention the Li clan. Even in the Wang clan, where Wang Yu's father was the third son and became the clan head, Wang Yu's two uncles were usually very dissatisfied. This was a grudge between the rich and the powerful. Everyone understood that. No wonder. Hearing this, Wang Yu nodded his head in agreement. Mingdu did not give up. My surname is also Li. Get lost, everyone said in unison. Everyone was here to have a good time. Since exquisite Ming was a bit of a taboo, no one brought it up. After the meal, exquisite Ming brought Wang Yu and the others to see the legendary pear blossoms. Jiangbei's pear blossoms were very famous. It was one of the first tourism projects supported by the country. Every Qingming festival, thousands of pear blossoms would bloom. Looking from above, it looked like snow in March. It was very stunning. Yang Na was from the south. She had never seen snow when she was young, so she had an indescribable yearning for snow. It was understandable that she liked to see pear blossoms. However, the otakus in Chuanjian did not have such high standards. If not for the girls accompanying them, they would rather go to an internet cafe to play a few rounds of games than come here to eat sand. Fortunately, there were many things to play in the pear orchard. Everyone looked around and stopped from time to time, so it was not very boring. Everyone was aimlessly admiring the scenery of the pear orchard with the flow of people. At that moment, they suddenly saw a group of people gathered not far away. Humans were creatures that loved to join in on the fun, especially women. Seeing so many people gathered together, Mu Zixian was the first to shout, "What's going on in front?" As she said that, Mu Zixian moved closer. Wang Yu naturally had to follow. This was an unfamiliar place, and there were so many people. Of course, everyone had to follow behind the best fighter. So when they saw Wang Yu follow, the others followed closely behind. There were more than 10 people in the group, and all of them had vicious looks on their faces. It was very frightening. Seeing Chuanjian's group coming over, the surrounding crowd made way for them. They pushed through the crowd and walked to the innermost side. They saw a tall and sturdy fatty sitting in the crowd. The fat man was sitting on a green rock with a lazy expression on his face. Beneath his feet was a sheet that had turned white from washing. The four corners of a sheet were pressed down by books, and on the sheet were written 4 large words, fortune-telling. F*CK. So he's a fortune teller. Seeing that there was a swindler sitting in the innermost area, they all revealed looks of disappointment. Molly, who was closest to the fatty, curled her lips and said regretfully, "Sigh, we wasted so much effort to squeeze in." "Young lady, you didn't waste your effort." At this moment, the fatty pretended to say, "Your surname is Ma, right?" When everyone heard this, they could not help but be stunned. From the moment they met, they had been calling each other by their in-game IDs. Other than Wang Yu and a few others, no one else in Chuanja knew that Ma Li's surname was Ma. Yet, this fatty could tell at a glance. He really had some skill. "How did you know?" Molly asked in surprise. "I told you that you didn't waste your effort," the fatty said with a smile. Hearing that, Molly was shocked. She nodded and said, "How much do you charge for a divination?" 1,000 yuan. The fatty squinted his eyes and said, 1,000? Ling Long Meng was shocked. "You're that person who charges 1,000 yuan for a divination?" "Who?" everyone asked Ling Long Meng in puzzlement. Ling Long Meng said, "This person never says his name. He always calls himself that person. Apparently, his divination is very accurate. He used to set up a stall in Tianhu Park." "Then, tell my fortune." Molly took out her wallet, counted out 1,000 yuan, and handed it over. Unexpectedly, the fatty waved his hand and said, "No, you don't have a fortune. What's there to tell?" Molly was speechless by the fatty. At this moment, Ling Long Meng went over and said, "Then tell my fortune. I'll pay 10,000. Did you see that? This was an evil rich person. It was as if he was afraid that others didn't know he was rich. 1,000 yuan wasn't enough, and he still wanted to raise the price against the market. However, just as Ling Long Meng finished speaking, a voice that sounded very familiar to Wang Yu came from the other side of the crowd. "Oomph, how good can you be? Even if you spend 1,000,000 yuan, you'll still be useless." Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice, only to see a girl who looked similar to Exquisite Dream leading a group of people into the crowd from another direction. Chapter 1043. Isn't it me? The girl stared at Wang Yu and Mu Zixian and snorted. "You two sure are in a good mood. Did you come to Jiangbei to provoke me?" This girl was none other than Li Yujie. There was a saying that God made fools of people. It was referring to this strange fate. The more you didn't want to meet someone, the more God would let you meet that person. The reason why Wang Yu didn't want to come to Jiangbei was because of this woman. Li Yujie was different from Yang Na. She was an extremely narrow-minded and lawless person. Back at the Wang family, this girl dared to make life difficult for Wang Yu in front of so many people. Now they were in Jiangbei. Even though there were so many people in Pear Garden, this woman was not afraid of making a fuss. If Wang Yu was alone, it would still be fine. Li Yujie could pretend that she didn't hear anything. If she went overboard, Li Yujie would give her 2 slaps. But now that she had so many friends, who knew what this crazy woman would do? "Do you know her?" Ling Long Meng was a little surprised that Wang Yu seemed to be very familiar with Li Yujie. Before Wang Yu could answer, Li Yujie said, "That's right. Are you interested in the leftover goods that I picked? Looks like this is all you'll ever be." F***CK. Who is this woman? The people in Xuanzhen were not good-tempered. Seeing Li Yujie's arrogant attitude, they immediately showed angry expressions. The straightforward Bao San had already rolled up his sleeves and was ready to hit someone. This guy was not in a good state of mind. He didn't know what it meant to be protective of the fairer sex. However, there was someone even more straightforward than Bao San. Seeing that Li Yujie was so disrespectful to Ling Long Meng and Wang Yu, Molly immediately pointed at Li Yujie and said, "Be more polite with your words." Hearing Ma Li's words, Li Yujie raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you motley crew really have no manners. Did I talk to you?" "Slap her." As soon as Li Yujie finished speaking, 2 well-dressed young men pushed through the crowd and reached out to hit her. Wang Yu frowned and was about to stop them when Bao San picked up a brick out of nowhere and placed it in front of Molly. He glared at the 2 young men and said, "Why don't you try taking another step forward?" "Io, a couple?" Li Yujie squinted at Bao San and said, "I hate it when people show off their love in front of me." "Slap them." F***CKU. Bao San always liked to take the initiative to gain the upper hand. After hearing Li Yujie's words, Bao San knew that these two young men would definitely beat him today. He simply cursed and smacked one of them on the head with a brick. How could someone who could work behind Li Yujie be an ordinary person? The young man was stunned by Bao San's sudden brick. After he recovered from his shock, he flew into a rage and stretched out his hand to hit Bao San. However, at this moment, Wang Yu's eyes narrowed. He stretched out his hand diagonally and casually lifted it up. The young man was directly thrown out. Wang Yu was really bad. He did not make a move earlier or later. He waited until Bao San slapped the young man before making a move. It was obvious that he was pulling the young man's hand. However, when the other young man saw that Wang Yu's hand was tilted, not only did he not get angry, but he also looked at Wang Yu in surprise. Then, he laughed at Wang Yu's misfortune and tactfully retreated to the side. Just you wait. I'm not done with you. The young man who was thrown to the side by Wang Yu knew that he was far from being Wang Yu's opponent. He shouted as he retreated and hid in the crowd. Li Yujie angrily said to the other young men behind her, "All of you, attack him together. I'll add 10 points to anyone who can take care of him." The other people behind Li Yujie looked at each other, and all of them revealed awkward expressions. Li Yujie was one of the best among the younger generation. These young men were naturally her pursuers. The so-called impression points should be a standard of Li Yujie's favorable impression of her pursuers. Judging from Li Yujie's tone, 10 impressions shouldn't be low. However, even if everyone did not know Wang Yu, they had to know the person who was just knocked down by Wang Yu. Wang Yu sent their companion flying so easily. There was no doubt that it was absolutely effortless for him to send them flying. In contrast, 10 points was like drawing a cake to appease hunger. At this time, whoever went up first was a King Fool. Enough. Seeing so many young people with martial arts skills being ordered around by Li Yujie like dogs, Wang Yu was more and more displeased. He glared at Li Yujie and said, "Are you done?" Li Yujie put one hand on her waist and pointed at Wang Yu with the other hand. She said like a shrew, "What? You bullied my brother, and now you want to bully me? Do you really think that our Li family is easy to bully? Do you dare to fight with me?" When everyone heard this, they were instantly speechless. It was the nature of women to be unreasonable. It was obviously this woman who came out to find trouble first, and now she said that she was bullied. What kind of logic was this? In terms of sparring, Wang Yu would naturally not spar with Li Yujie. Not to mention that Li Yujie was just a woman, even in terms of seniority, with Wang Yu's current martial arts realm. Even if Li Yujie's grandfather came, he would have to call her senior. Who was Li Yujie? How could she be worthy of fighting with Wang Yu? This was also where Wang Yu was in a dilemma. After all, it was not good to bully the younger generation, and it would affect the relationship between the two families. Just as Wang Yu was in a dilemma, he suddenly heard the fat stall owner say, "I say, can the two of you switch to another place to fight? I have already paid the stall fee to set up my stall here. Don't affect my business. Come on, let's fight outside." Li Yujie glanced at the fat man and pointed to the door. Wang Yu said calmly, "You can't fight anywhere. You can forget about it. Are you scared?" Li Yujie raised an eyebrow and asked disdainfully, "Ha, little girl, do you really think that you have nothing to fear in Jiangbei?" Seeing that Li Yujie was taking him seriously, Wu Ji, who had been standing behind Wang Yu, smiled and walked out. Li Yujie looked at Wu Ji and sneered. "Who do you think you are? How dare you control me?" Being arrogant and domineering was the Li family's style. Li Yujie's words and actions were indeed similar to Ling Longmeng's. The only difference was that Ling Longmeng was reasonable, while Li Yujie was completely unreasonable, like a spoiled child. That was to be expected. Wang Yu had heard of the Li family's protectiveness, so he was not surprised that Wang Yu was spoiled. "Hee," Wu Ji said with a smile. "Of course I don't dare to control you, but there are many who do. I'm just reminding you." Then, Wu Ji pointed at the patrol car on the road. It was the Pear Blossom Festival, and to ensure the safety of the tourists, there were police cars patrolling the area 24 hours a day. In the eyes of the police, there was no difference between a duel and a brawl. It did not matter if you were the daughter of the Li family or the young master of the Wang family. Even if you knew how to fly to the sky, you would be thrown in jail for 2 days for causing trouble here. Chapter 1044. As the saying goes, no matter how good kung fu is, it's still afraid of a kitchen knife. As an experienced person, Uncle Nyo wanted to advise all children who believe in kung fu not to use kung fu to challenge the law. In this era where guns and cannons were everywhere, kung fu no longer had a foothold. Those who used to challenge the police with their fists were now 3 feet tall. Although Li Yujia was domineering, she was not a fool. She caused trouble at the Wang family because she knew that she was a junior and a member of the Li family. Those who were capable would not argue with her. However, if she wanted to cause trouble in front of the police, it meant that she was deliberately making things difficult for her. Seeing where Wuji was pointing, Li Yujia clenched her fists, and the arrogance on her face weakened a lot. Then, Wuji smiled and said, "It's easy to prove yourself. Do you know that there's a game called Rebirth? That game is a holographic simulation, just like reality. When the time comes, come and fight with us in the game. The police can't do anything there. You bunch of bastards, even if we fight together, we'll be bullying you." Wuji was Wuji. He could never change his insidious nature. He started to bluff as soon as he opened his mouth. Holographic simulation was indeed the same as reality, but there were no such things as levels and equipment in reality. He was changing the concept again. Bastard? Of course, Li Yujia did not understand the meaning behind Wuji's words. At this time, seeing that such a weak scholar dared to mock her, Li Yujia's forehead bulged. However, seeing the police not far away, Li Yujia did not dare to cause trouble. She could only stare at Wuji fiercely and said, "Fine, just you wait." After saying that, Li Yujia pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Especially you. I'll teach you a lesson. Let's go." After saying that, Li Yujia angrily turned around and left with a group of people. Wang Yu's face was full of helplessness, and his eyes were full of concern for the mentally handicapped. Seeing that Li Yujia and her group left, the onlookers knew that there was no way to fight, so they regretfully dispersed. Only the fat man who set up the stall asked Wang Yu cheerfully, "Do you want to know who will win? 1,000 yuan. Hee hee." Wang Yu smiled and spread his hands. He made an indifferent expression and said, "Is there a need to calculate? That's true. Then you can do it." Fatty shook his fist at Wang Yu. "What about you?" Wang Yu asked, baffled. "For my share too." Fatty looked at Wang Yu and said desolately. As he spoke, the fatty stood up from the rock. He didn't even bother to pick up the bed sheets and books on the ground. Instead, he left the stall and his lonely figure disappeared into the crowd. "You seem to know him?" Mu Zixian asked curiously. "It's so familiar." Wang Yu nodded with some emotion. While Wang Yu was still feeling inexplicably emotional, the people of Chuanjin had already surrounded him. "Tell us, who is that little girl? What's your relationship with her?" This, Wang Yu looked at Mu Zixian awkwardly. In front of his wife, Wang Yu really didn't know how to introduce this girl. Say that he didn't know her? That was pure nonsense. Although Li Yujia was annoying, she was still Wang Yu's fiancée. Say fiancé. Wasn't that courting death? In the end, Yang Na was more soft-hearted. She came to the rescue and said, "If I'm not wrong, that girl should be called Li Yujia." "Yes, it's her." Ling Long Meng nodded and said, "She is the daughter of my second uncle. I'm not familiar with her." "Our uncle's daughter? Logically speaking, she should be the younger sister." Her words are asking for a beating. "Why don't you beat her up?" Mingdu asked curiously. Ling Long Meng spread her hands and said, "I don't know martial arts. How can I beat her? I heard that she was kicked by someone. I didn't expect the person to be Old Cow." TSK, TSK. Kicked by Old Cow. Could it be? Hearing Ling Long Meng's words, the others also reacted. They pointed at Wang Yu and asked, "She's your..." Seeing Mu Zixian's strange expression, Wang Yu's face darkened. "Enough. Will it kill you to speak less?" Ugh. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly covered their mouths. But then again, this kind of woman, if it wasn't someone as ruthless as Wang Yu, no ordinary person would be able to control her. But hearing Ling Long Meng's words, Wuji's face immediately turned green. "According to you, she's Nian Liuyun's sister?" "Yes, biological sister." Ling Long Meng and Wang Yu nodded in unison. "Nian Liuyun's team should have her, right?" Thinking that the team leader of Nian Luyun's Grandmaster of Combat team was a woman, Wu Ji suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Ling Long Meng said, "Didn't I say it before? She led people to form that team. Damn, look at the trouble you've caused." Hearing this, everyone gave Wu Ji the middle finger in unison. Damn, how fierce a person who practiced martial arts could be when playing games. The people of Chuanjin, who were used to the crazy Wang Yu, knew better than anyone else how fierce a person who practiced martial arts could be. A person who played martial arts was already unstoppable, let alone a team. Wu Ji originally wanted to use the level and equipment advantage in the game to bully this arrogant woman, but who knew that she would King kick a steel plate? "This is my fault." Facing everyone's accusations, Wu Ji said, "Even if we didn't provoke her, she would have come to provoke us." "Why?" everyone asked in confusion. "Isn't it obvious?" Wu Ji pointed at Wang Yu and said, "Old cow first trampled on her sister, then beat up her brother. She's definitely here to seek revenge." Yu. Hearing Wu Ji's explanation, everyone immediately shifted their hatred to Wang Yu. "What's wrong with me?" Wang Yu raised her eyebrows and looked around. Seeing Wang Yu's gaze, everyone hurriedly said, "You did well. This gave us unlimited motivation. You deserve praise." "Yes, you guys are right." Wang Yu shamelessly accepted it. Ling Long Meng was also a person who was waiting to die. She did not have much work to do, so for the next few days, she brought the people of Chuanjin around, eating, drinking, and having fun. Other than Li Yujia's appearance on the first day, they had a great time during the holidays. After returning home from Jiangbei, Wang Yu had a good day's rest. At 8 o'clock the next morning, the game update was finally completed. The new version of Rise of Dragons was officially launched. As usual, Wang Yu was not in a hurry to enter the game. Instead, he went online to browse through the content of the new expansion pack. The expansion pack this time was quite big. This time, the background story of dragons, which was rarely recorded, was revealed a lot. According to the background record, Dragon Island was an island that flew around the mainland. The giant dragons on Dragon Island were creatures that no one dared to provoke. However, these giant lizards were powerful and very greedy. From time to time, they would fly to the mainland to rob. Among them, there were some scum who would rob while also raping others. As time passed, many half-dragons were born on the mainland. Chapter 1046. No one had ever seen dragons before, so they did not know that these giant lizards were born with dragon language magic and could transform into human form. Therefore, there was no need to discuss the issue of how they raped women and their reproductive isolation. The dragon race was an abnormally powerful race. Humans couldn't do anything to them when they were roaming around. Therefore, the absurd thing of creating a race for a woman happened just like that. As the dragons stirred up trouble without any scruples, the number of draconians increased. Gradually, they evolved from individuals to groups, and then from groups to races. These draconians had the wisdom of humans and strength that far exceeded that of humans. They were a very powerful race. However, the reborn continent was a world where faith was paramount. Other than the neutral camp, the Church of Light and the Dark Parliament would never allow anyone with special powers to exist. Therefore, the Church of Light and the Dark Parliament would definitely reject the Draconians. And the dragons were a proud race. Naturally, they would not acknowledge these Draconians. Therefore, the Draconians were excluded as a fringe race. As these Draconians had the blood of dragons, they were born with an advantage in strength. As the number of Draconians increased, and the greedy nature of dragons was exposed, these Draconians became more and more difficult to control. In order to control these Draconians, the Church of Light and the Dark Parliament sought out Long Outyin. Long Outyin was one of the best among the Draconians. He had the blood of the black dragons and was one of the best among the younger generation of the dragons. The two camps knew that the Draconians wanted to live in peace, so they made a promise. Long Outyin, who longed for recognition, used the gold of the Draconians to build a palace to attract the Dragon Emperor. Finally, With the cooperation of the god of light and the dark church leader, they sealed Dales under the Dragon Island and built the Heavenly Dragon City, stopping the Dragon Island next to the Heavenly Dragon City forever. The Dragon Clan was imprisoned in the large prison of the Dragon Island. Long Out Yin, the master of the city, actually played the role of the warden. As for the Draconians, after Long Out Yin imprisoned the dragons, their numbers stopped increasing. The original Draconians were also purged by the light and dark factions. It could be said that there were not many left. The survivors also disappeared from the face of the earth. Everyone knew the rest of the story. When players reached level 100, they would receive a hidden quest called the Truth. Then, when Long Out Yin found out that he had been tricked, he would turn around and massacre the entire city. Of course, due to the sudden appearance of Wang Yu, these quests were forcefully deleted by the developers and turned into a backstory. Therefore, apart from the changes in the background story, the biggest update this time was the addition of the hidden race, the Dragonborn. The dragons possessed the bloodline of dragons, so there was no need to elaborate on their strength. Furthermore, dragons were a highly intelligent race, and their intelligence was off the charts. It was evident that this was a new race that could crush all other races in all aspects. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come up with the gimmick of a hidden race. As for how to become a member of the dragon human tribe, the system only gave him one hint, and that was that he couldn't worship light or darkness. In other words, he had to be neutral. This was also reasonable. The light and darkness factions had caused so much trouble for others, so it would be strange if they could stay with them. Apart from the release of the dragon human tribe, there weren't many other major updates. After skimming through them, Wang Yu put on his equipment and entered the game. After entering the game, Wang Yu appeared in Heavenly Dragon City again. The time in the game was not synchronized with reality. Although a week had passed in reality, it still looked like Wang Yu had just logged off in the game. At this time, Heavenly Dragon City had just been ravaged by Long Out Yin, and the main buildings in the city had been completely destroyed. It looked like there were 1,000 things that needed to be done. Heavenly Dragon City's players hung their heads in dejection. They had no choice. The city had been destroyed, and the city lord had been slaughtered. The players of Heavenly Dragon City could be considered to have lost their homes. No one could be happy about this. However, at this moment, the person who was even more depressed than the players of Heavenly Dragon City was Wang Yu. This was because Wang Yu received a system notification as soon as he went online. System notification: your city has been severely damaged and needs to be repaired. The repair cost is 1 million gold. Preparation time: 3 days. Wang Yu burst into tears when she saw this system notification that was a scam. Those bastards who cried and begged to become city lords had never been city lords before. In their eyes, city lords controlled Heavenly Dragon City's taxes and were high and mighty. Little did they know that thieves ate meat, but they didn't see thieves getting beaten up. Repairing the city required money. 1 million gold. Unless it was a guild with tens of thousands of players at the end of the world, no one would be able to afford such a huge expenditure. Of course, Chuanjin had just made a fortune from selling the Cape Shards. After splitting the profits, everyone would receive a lot of money. It wasn't like Wang Yu couldn't gather 1 million gold. However, even if Wang Yu could afford it, he would probably go bankrupt. Wang Yu and Chuanjin were the same. They weren't completely unambitious, but they weren't ambitious. Putting aside whether this broken city was worth so much money to repair, even if it was worth it, Wang Yu naturally wouldn't spend all his money on a project he wasn't interested in. The system didn't care if you were willing or not. It wouldn't bargain or reason with you. If it said 1 million gold, it wouldn't be any less. If Wang Yu didn't pay, the system would probably forcefully deduct it from Wang Yu's personal account. Since he had become the city lord, he had to take responsibility, right? Wang Yu wasn't a saint. Even if he didn't have much of a concept of money, he still felt depressed when he saw the system scam him. How depressing. Seeing that he was about to be scammed by the system, Wang Yu couldn't help but shout in the guild channel. "Damn, old cow, are you crazy?" Seeing Wang Yu like this, everyone was shocked. Since Chuanjin knew Wang Yu, they had never seen Wang Yu sad because of anything. Even when facing a top existence like the Dragon Emperor, Wang Yu dared to face it head-on. What kind of problem did he encounter at this time that could make such a terrifying guy shout in depression? Wang Yu shouted, "Brat, you scammed me. Who the hell has the guts?" Dugu Jiuqiang? Hearing this, everyone in Xuanzhen was shocked. They hadn't seen him for a long time. Did this Dugu Zongxin become more capable? He even dared to scam Wang Yu. It's not him, it's the system. Wang Yu gloomily copied the system notification and pasted it into the guild channel. Seeing Wang Yu's message, Xuanzhen's channel instantly became quiet. Chapter 1047. For a long time, the relationship between game operators and professional players had been very delicate. In theory, professional players were like parasites in the game, absorbing the nutrition of the game as much as possible for their own use. However, from another perspective, professional players were still players, and game operators did not deprive others of the right to play the game. Therefore, as long as professional players did not use the game resources to amass wealth and affect the gaming experience of other players, the game company would not interfere. Xuanzhen and his group used the system activities and the Castellan's privileges to amass 100 million gold coins in just 3 days. Such a huge amount was not something an ordinary studio could handle. One had to know that Longting Company had represented a dark game with the theme of Journey to the West. It was because the studio was too rampant and the game operator could not make money, which caused the developers to resign and replace them. Therefore, it was reasonable for them to target Xuanzhen. However, after thinking about it, everyone was puzzled. That's not right. If they want to target, they should target evildoers run wild. Why are they targeting us? To move unhindered was the biggest resource monopoly in the game. Compared to evildoers run wild, Xuanzhen felt that they were insignificant. What do you know? Wuji curled his lips. How can our behavior be compared to evildoers run wild? This. Hearing Wuji's words, everyone chuckled. After all, Unhinder the World was a legitimate guild. Even though they had monopolized the mining area, they had never used any special methods to stop other players from mining. Moreover, when other players mined, they could sell it for a good price in Unhinder the World. At most, they would collect some protection fees. It was reasonable for them to collect some money for clearing the monsters in the mining area. This kind of behavior was not as domineering as a guild setting up a leveling area. Moreover, mining was not an easy job, especially in a holographic simulation game. Everyone could not just hang out and watch short movies. Not many people were willing to do such a boring job. To move unhindered, although it looked like they had a monopoly on the mining area, it was actually doing work for most players that they did not want to do. If there weren't so many miners serving the players, everyone would have to spend a day in the mines just to find a mine. Moreover, to move unhindered hundreds of thousands of people to this extent, not to mention how much transaction tax they would have to pay every month, just the rice bowls of these hundreds of thousands of people could not be taken away easily. After all, the law did not punish the masses. Everyone was just trying to make a living. Longting Company was not so ignorant. On the other hand, not only did Xuanzhen and the others not contribute to the game's output, they even went around hunting bosses and resorted to other means to earn money. This was especially true for the cloak incident, which was a transaction of $100 million. Xuanzhen and the others made the transaction face-to-face, and the system didn't even get any F***king tax. How could the system like them? What should we do? Damn it. Hurry up and sell the gold coins. Let's make some money and run away. Although Xuanzhen's men were shameless, they knew their limits. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel insecure. Seeing that his words had elicited such a reaction from everyone, Wang Yu was speechless. He said, "What are you talking about? The system is targeting me." "Nonsense. If you're being targeted, how far can we go?" Everyone was depressed. Wang Yu said helplessly, "You're not the Castellan of Sky Dragon City." Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. "What? You're the Castellan of Sky Dragon City?" Out of guilt for Long Outyin, Wang Yu had never mentioned the matter of Sky Dragon City to the people of Xuanzhen, so everyone thought that Wang Yu was targeted because he was registered in Sky Dragon City. At this time, hearing this news, Everyone could not help but tremble, and they almost fell to the ground in shock. Castellan, Castellan. The term Castellan was a very distant thing for the players at this stage. Even the super guilds did not dare to hope to be a Castellan. It was already rare for Wang Yu to be the Castellan of Yu Huicheng. Who would have thought that he would go out for a stroll and become a Castellan? What did it mean to be a ruthless person? Going out to do a mission and casually getting a city lord, this kind of method was really amazing. Of course, if this had happened to someone else, the people of Xuanzhen would not have been able to recover from it for a long time if they found out that someone was better at fishing in troubled waters than they were. However, when it happened to Wang Yu, everyone only hesitated for a moment before they felt that this matter was very logical. This was the most unreasonable way of thinking. Very soon, Wu Ji reminded Wang Yu, if it's the Castellan, it'll be easy. You could go and take a look at the National Treasury. We can't let you pay for such a huge loss alone, right? Indeed, no matter how shameless the system was, it probably wouldn't do such a thing for a newly appointed official to cheat someone of 1 million gold coins. That's true. Hearing this, Wang Yu hurriedly opened the Heavenly Dragon City's inventory from the Castellan's interface. Things like building materials and food had already been burned by Long Outyin. As for the gold coins as tax, there was still 500,000 left. Who knew if Long Outyin was corrupt or not? Heavenly Dragon City was one of the 4 major cities, and there were 600,000 to 700,000 players. If everyone paid 1 gold coin as tax, there shouldn't be so little left. If it was 80,000 gold coins, Wang Yu could still consider it. If it was 500,000 gold coins, then forget about it. After all, such a large amount was no different from 1 million gold coins to normal people. Anyway, it was an astronomical figure. Even if it was less than half, Wang Yu didn't want to take it. There are 500,000 gold coins in the main city's inventory. Wang Yu sent a screenshot of the inventory to the guild channel. 500,000? That's a lot. Seeing the screenshot of the inventory, Mingdu drooled. Wang Yu said angrily, not a lot, my ass. It's not our Yu Huicheng. I don't want to pay a single cent. What are you thinking? Mingdu said angrily. What I mean is for you to run away with the National Treasury. Isn't 500,000 gold coins just for nothing? Everyone, God knows what kind of education Mingdu had received since he was young. In this kind of situation, he didn't even need to think about it to come up with such a stupid idea. Was taking advantage of the situation an instinct of this bastard? It was too scary. Wang Yu shook his head and said, I can't run away. The system only gave me 3 days to collect the money. I think if I can't collect it by then, the system will force my account to be erased. If that's the case, Wu Ji thought for a while and said, we'll have to find a sucker to take you. Oh, Wang Yu's eyes lit up when he heard this. How we find one? Wu Ji said lightly, it's very simple. Just transfer the position of Castellan to someone else. Even if you don't want to be a Castellan, there are plenty of people who want it. They have the numbers, so they don't care about this. Wang Yu was speechless again. Mingdu did some bad things, but it was only to benefit himself. Wu Ji, this guy, was even insulting others. What kind of people were these? Chapter 1048. For a big guild, controlling a main city was the starting point for them to dominate the game. In the eyes of those super large guilds, compared to a guild residence, a main city lord was the true ruler of the world. A guild residence? It couldn't even compare to a village. Let's not talk about the distant world. Even during the end of the world, the Heavenly Dragon City Lord had always been on his mind. Just when Wang Yu was hesitating whether or not to transfer Sky Dragon City, Dugu Jiuqiang sent a message to Wang Yu. Nyogu, are you okay? You worried me to death. Seeing Dugu Jiuqiang's message, Wang Yu's face was full of pain. What the heck? Dying once in a game only gave 10% experience. What's it to worry about? If you want the lord of the city, just say it. With such fake concern, Wang Yu couldn't expose Dugu Jiuqiang's hypocrisy. It would only make him feel awkward. However, no matter how awkward Wang Yu was, he wasn't an insensible person. One shouldn't hit a smiling person. Since Dugu Jiuqiang was related to him, It wouldn't be right for him to argue back. I'm fine. I'm fine. Wang Yu replied calmly. It's good that you're fine. Dugu Jiuqiang replied and then said, Where's Nyoga now? Can you come over for a drink? Drink? Wang Yu was puzzled. The tavern in Sky Dragon City wasn't demolished? Dugu Jiuqiang was stunned by Wang Yu's words and fell into an awkward situation again. In fact, Dugu Jiuqiang was also a very straightforward person. If it was someone else who cheated him, they would have already talked about it. However, the one who cheated Dugu Jiuqiang was Wang Yu. Dugu Jiuqiang was already very afraid of Wang Yu. After witnessing Wang Yu's bravery in fighting Long Outyin, he was even more submissive towards Wang Yu. How would he dare to speak to Wang Yu so directly? If Wang Yu got angry, no one could guarantee that the tens of thousands of people in the world would be able to deal with Wang Yu. However, Dugu Jiuqiang was 100% sure that if Wang Yu wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Moreover, the boss of Unhindered the World had an unclear relationship with Wang Yu. One had to know that no matter what, Wang Yu was still hanging out with those despicable people from the Quanjin sect. If he really angered Wang Yu, then he could forget about being the city lord for the rest of his life. However, Dugu Jiuqiang was also a straightforward person. It would be a torture for anyone to make him talk in a roundabout way. Wang Yu couldn't stand this kind of hesitant person the most. Just as he was about to take the initiative to express his stance, Wu Ji suddenly sent a message. Don't be in a hurry to make a move. Why? Wang Yu was puzzled and asked. You're just going to give away the ownership of the main city? Wu Ji said. What else? Wang Yu was a little confused. In this mission, although they failed at the critical moment of the end of the world, if it wasn't for Dugu Jiuqiang and the others who covered for them, Wang Yu wouldn't have been able to succeed so easily. Therefore, Wang Yu felt that it was reasonable to give up Sky Dragon City to the end of the world. Even because of the repair costs, Wang Yu felt a little guilty. At this time, seeing Wu Ji stop him, Wang Yu couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Wu Ji said, this is the ownership of the main city. Many people are willing to pay a high price, but can't get it. How can you just give it to someone else? Then what do you mean? Hearing Wu Ji say this, Wang Yu immediately reacted. This kid Wu Ji actually wanted to sell the ownership of the main city. Black, really black. Wang Yu thought that he was black-bellied enough, but compared to a guy like Wu Ji, he was as pure as an author. It was obviously a scam, but listening to this guy, he wanted to sell it at a high price. This grandson was really plucking feathers from geese. Sure enough, when Wu Ji heard this, he immediately smiled and said, Of course I want to sell it. Wang Yu said with some hesitation. Sell it. I'm afraid it won't be sold well, and it will be ruined in my own hands. Although the ownership of the main city was genuine, who didn't ask clearly before buying? If it was given for free, it was reasonable to pay a price for such a precious thing at the end of the world. But if it was sold, the other party was a consumer. If he didn't explain things clearly, wouldn't he be cheating the consumer? Moreover, once the news was leaked, even if it was given for free, people would probably consider whether to buy it or not. Wouldn't it be ruined in his own hands? Wu Ji said, Of course, such a precious thing should be put up for auction. Auction. Wang Yu touched his chin when he heard this. The format of the auction was to throw the thing somewhere. The seller and the buyer couldn't meet each other. This guy couldn't even see Wang Yu, so he naturally wouldn't know about the repair fee. As for how much it was sold for, it was purely up to the willing buyer. But after thinking about it, Wang Yu said again, Didn't you say that the auction fee is unreliable? I'm talking about the live auction. Wu Ji said, That's something for the rich. It's not something a second-hand dealer can afford. I see. Wang Yu suddenly understood. Wu Ji's idea was good. Since he could sell such a precious thing, Wang Yu naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to not earn money. Moreover, in addition to the Sky Dragon City Lord, Wang Yu also had the dragon scales, dragon meat, and dragon eggs dropped by Long Outyin. It was a good opportunity to sell it. Thinking of this, Wang Yu couldn't help but ask, When does the auction start? Tomorrow, Wu Ji said, but we have to send the things over today, and at the same time we have to promote it. Build momentum. Of course, Wang Yu understood what Wu Ji meant by building momentum. After all, Being the lord of Main City was something that many super guilds dreamed of. If they didn't hype it up, who would know that such a thing would be sold at the auction? The price would definitely increase with the competitiveness. As expected of the Quanjun sect's incompetent advisor, it was clearly a scam, but if he changed the method, he would be able to make money immediately. With Wuji's IQ, it would be a pity for him to stir up trouble in the game. After understanding Wuji's idea, Wang Yu said excitedly, "Okay, it's settled. Where are we going to meet? I'll go over now." "Wuji, Free City." "Okay, I'll be there soon." Wang Yu replied and closed the dialogue box with Wuji. At the same time, he replied to Dugu Juqiang, "Do you want to talk about the lord of the city?" Yes. Dugu Juqiang immediately replied, "Do you still remember?" "Yes." Wang Yu said, "The lord of the city seal was thrown into the auction." After saying that, Wang Yu added, "It's a live auction in the Free City." Seeing Wang Yu's message, Dugu Jiuqiang felt wronged. "Nyogu, didn't we agree on it?" "Yes." Wang Yu said, "We agreed that you would help me kill Long Outyin, and I would let you be the lord of the city. However, I killed Long Outyin myself. You can't deny this. P.S. Did anyone watch Dunkirk? I feel that this movie is a pain in the ass. It's fine if a group of World War II deserters are praised as heroes, but the key is that they let the China Expeditionary Force become cannon fodder. This group of treacherous fellows can also brag. I really don't know what the British are thinking. Their values are really broken. For the fastest and error-free novel reading, please visit Chapter 1049. Dugu Jiuqiang didn't dare to ask for the Castellan's position because he knew that Wang Yu had single-handedly killed Long Outyin. Wang Yu's contribution to the apocalypse was negligible. Asking for the Castellan's position under such circumstances would only make Wang Yu unhappy. All right. Seeing Dugu Jiuqiang's attitude, Wang Yu knew what was going through his mind. So, he replied, "Don't complain. I'm doing this for your own good. Also, I advise you not to go to the auction. You'd better not have any thoughts about the seal." At the end of the day, Dugu Jiuqiang wasn't completely useless. It was worth reminding him that he couldn't only trick one person. After saying that, Wang Yu closed the chat window and stopped replying to Dugu Jiuqiang's messages. Only Dugu Jiuqiang was left in despair. Seeing Dugu Jiuqiang's dispirited expression, the players around Dugu Jiuqiang gathered around and asked, "What did that be *TCH say?" Dugu Jiuqiang thought for a moment and said, "He dropped the Castellan seal, but he didn't want to give it to us." Why? Everyone was furious when they heard this. They had an agreement from the start. Why did he suddenly change his mind? This was too unreasonable. Because we didn't help this time. Dugu Jiuqiang spread his hands helplessly. If the other party was someone else, Dugu Jiuqiang might have sent someone to rob him. However, when it came to Wang Yu, Dugu Jiuqiang was helpless. At this time, someone asked, "Then let's buy it from him, right?" "Buy it?" Dugu Jiuqiang sneered. "He has already taken it to the Freedom City's auction." Freedom City's auction? Hearing Dugu Jiuqiang's words, everyone couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. That was a gathering place for the rich. Those who could participate in the auction were all top-notch rich kids. These people didn't seek the best, only the most expensive. They wanted the satisfaction of being richer than others. This was much more fun than those elementary school students who flaunted their wealth. Let alone something as precious as the City Lord seal, these wealthy people would even bid 100 gold coins for a single potion. Even the commoners would shrink back at the sight of such an imposing manner. Even large guilds in the apocalypse, which were supported by large financial groups, didn't dare to simply throw money at those prodigal young masters and young mistresses. After all, financial groups invested in esports to make money and not to spend money like those rich kids. The people from Quanjin sect really know how to do business. Should we go and take a look? Brother Guang rubbed his bald head and asked with some yearning. Dugan Nine Spears shook his head and said, "Forget it. We can't afford it even if we go." The Castellan seal was an extremely rare and precious item. Even if it was exchanged for RMB, it could probably be sold for tens of millions. It wasn't impossible for the group of rich kids to raise the price even higher. Of course, with the financial resources of the apocalypse, it would be an exaggeration to say that they couldn't afford it. It was just difficult to apply for funds. The reason why Dugu Jiuqiang didn't go was because of Wang Yu's last words. Dugu Jiuqiang didn't know why Wang Yu said that, but Dugu Jiuqiang definitely understood Xuanzhen well enough. This guy always took advantage of others and never suffered any losses. This time, he might be holding back some bad ideas to harm others. He knew that this group of people was sinister, but he still wanted to go against them. Wasn't that despicable? Dugu Jiuqiang didn't dare to have any ideas about the seal, but it didn't mean that others didn't. Just as Wang Yu boarded the airship to the Freedom Cities, a player approached him from the side. The player walked in front of Wang Yu and asked with a smile, "You must be Mr. Iron Ox." "Yes." Wang Yu nodded and glanced at the player. This player looked to be in his 30s. He was a little thin, but he was well-proportioned. His shiny hair, in particular, made people want to take a few more glances at him. As for his appearance, he looked very friendly, but there was a sense of closeness in his words that was difficult to get close to. His body emitted a faint orange glow, which really surprised Wang Yu. It was actually a set of dark gold equipment. It seemed that this person's background wasn't simple. "Who are you?" Wang Yu immediately asked. "I'm called World of Windcloud. I'm the leader of the World Alliance. I'm sure you've heard of me before." The middle-aged man spoke unhurriedly. His tone seemed to be very confident in his name, and he felt that Wang Yu had to know him. Everyone knew that Wang Yu was a noob in the game. When he heard the name Whole of Windcloud, he was stunned for a moment. He then thought for a while and said, "I don't know you. Never heard of you." The Whole of Windcloud, who had failed to act cool, was stunned for a moment. He then immediately tried to find a way out and said, "It's okay. We know each other now. Don't be afraid. I'm just here to talk business with you." The Whole of Windcloud's way of speaking seemed to have always been like this. His tone was arrogant, and there was a hint of unquestionable authority. "Oh." Wang Yu nodded and turned around to look at the scenery below the airship. Wang Yu had never liked this kind of pretentious peddler. Meow. Even the richest and most powerful player in the game, Evildoers Run Wild, had to obediently call Wang Yu brother when he saw him. Who did he think he was to make Wang Yu afraid? "That, Mr. Iron Ox, don't you want to hear what business it is?" Seeing that Wang Yu was ignoring him, the Whole of Windcloud came over and asked. Wang Yu wasn't an impolite person. The airship was only so big, and Wang Yu didn't want to throw the Whole of Windcloud off. Thus, he calmly replied, "I'm listening, you can tell me." Mr. Iron Ox is really straightforward. The Whole of Windcloud said, "I heard that you have a good item on you. With it, you could become the city lord of Heavenly Dragon City, right?" "Who did you hear that from?" Wang Yu raised his eyebrows and asked. Currently, other than Dugu Jiuqiang, only the people from Xuanzhen knew that Wang Yu had the City Lord seal on him. Dugu Jiuqiang was coveting the City Lord's position, so naturally, he wouldn't tell anyone else about it. Even if the people from Xuanzhen wanted to hype things up, they would say that the seal was in the hands of the auction house. How did this guy know about it? This made Wang Yu a little puzzled. "Mph." The Whole of Windcloud waved his hand and said, "You don't have to ask about that. In any case, I'm very interested in the item in your hands. How about it? Can you consider selling it? I've already come to talk to you personally. I'm very sincere." The Whole of Windcloud's tone was still high and mighty, as if it was an honor for him to come to talk to Wang Yu. "Sell it? Transfer?" Wang Yu smiled and said, "On what basis?" "Hee." The Whole of Windcloud stretched out a finger and said, "Is 100,000 gold enough?" Chapter 1050. The current market price of dark gold equipment was 10,000 gold coins per piece, and the price of weapons and clothes was double that of individual equipment. From top to bottom, everyone in the Whole of Windcloud was equipped with dark gold equipment, and this flashy outfit was worth a lot more gold coins. Wang Yu thought that Windcloud World would be able to fork out a lot of money. It turned out that he was so stingy. After all, it was a Castellan seal. Wang Yu would feel wronged if he sold it for less than the price of a set of equipment. He would rather not sell it all. "Huh." Windcloud World laughed and said proudly, "Mr. Iron Ox is a knowledgeable person." Wang Yu curled his lips again. This grandson wasn't being stingy, but he was treating him like a country bumpkin. How about this? Name a price. As long as it's suitable, we'll trade now, Wind Cloud World said with a smile. No need. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, I don't want to do business with you. I'm planning to throw this item in the auction. If you're not short of money, you can go to the auction tomorrow to buy it. After saying that, Wang Yu turned her head away again, not wanting to bother with this guy anymore. Is that so? Even though Wang Yu had already put it this way, entire Wind Cloud still continued to dawdle. Even though Wang Yu had put it this way, entire Wind Cloud still continued to dawdle. He smiled and said, It's fine if you don't want to do business with me. However, if you throw this seal at the auction, it will eventually return to my hands. While let the people at the auction earn the processing fee. Here he was again. Wind Cloud World's tone was like he was the best in the world. It was disgusting. He spoke as if no one in the game was richer than him. Wang Yu had seen many confident people, but it was the first time Wang Yu had seen someone like Heavenly Wind Cloud, who was so confident that it made others hate him. Wang Yu ignored Wind Cloud World's words and pointed at the bottom of the airship. Do you think this airship is tall? Wind Cloud World looked down and said, Yes, it's quite tall. That's good. Wang Yu glared at Windy World and said, If you continue to snort beside me, I'll throw you down. You. Windy World was stunned. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. He even dared to threaten Wang Yu. He really had some guts. Guard. Wang Yu raised his hand and snapped his fingers at the guard beside him. City Lord, what's your arrangement? The guard saluted Wang Yu with a straight face. As the airship was still in the territory of Heavenly Dragon City, the guard were still Wang Yu's subjects. Wang Yu pointed at Windy World and said, Take him down. Yes. Following which, the guard walked up to Heavenly Wind Cloud under Heavenly Wind Cloud's astonished gaze. Windy World turned pale with fright as he pointed at Wang Yu and the guards. You dare to cross me? Do you know who I am? Wang Yu had no interest in knowing who Windy World was. As for the guard, he was even less interested. Before Windy World could finish his sentence, the guard swung his spear at Windy World. Windy World had probably never seen the guard's strength before. Seeing the guard attacking him, he overestimated himself and counterattacked. In the end, he was thrown down from the airship by the guard in less than a round. Just you wait, so annoying. Wang Yu picked his ears as he watched Windy World being thrown down. The Freedom City could be said to be the most special main city in the game. The reason why it was special was that it was an absolutely neutral main city. Moreover, the Freedom City was not as chaotic as a neutral main city like Sin City. On the contrary, everything in the Freedom City was orderly and had better security than a capital city like Saint Light City. Here, there were no restrictions from factions. Players from the Light faction and Dark faction lived together peacefully. It was a scene of freedom and prosperity. Because of this, the stronghold of the auction was set up here. After all, this was the only place where players could calmly discuss business. After alighting from the airship, Wang Yu was dumbfounded when he saw the players of the Freedom City. Although Yu Huicheng was a neutral main city, the neutral faction and the Light faction were allies. Therefore, the players in Yu Huicheng were all players from the Light faction, and their classes were also from the Light faction. As the saying went, people of different factions could not make plans together. Even if the players in Yu Huicheng joined the Dark faction, they would still migrate to the Dark faction's main city to avoid being targeted. Therefore, until now, Wang Yu had only seen a limited number of players from the Dark faction. Half of the players in the Freedom City were from the Dark faction. There were orcs, elves, Atlans, and all kinds of other players. These strange shapes and forms were unfamiliar to Wang Yu, let alone their classes. Hey, what are you daydreaming about? Just as Wang Yu was dumbfounded, a voice came from a small stall not far away. Wang Yu looked in the direction of the voice and saw Wuji sitting there, smiling at him. Wang Yu took a few steps toward Wuji, pulled a stool, and sat down. You're quite fast. Of course, Wuji said with a smile. This place is different from Yu Huicheng. Hey, the people here dress so strangely. Wang Yu could not help but sigh as he pointed at an orc warrior not far away. This girl looked too strange. Wang Yu could not help but want to punch her. Oof. Wu Ji laughed. It's the dark faction, a bunch of dirty and ugly fellows. It's not surprising that they look like this. The airship was the only port of entry and exit to the Freedom City, so there were quite a number of players nearby. There were many players from the dark faction sitting around Wang Yu and Selena. As soon as Wu Ji finished speaking, Wang Yu immediately felt a murderous glare directed at him. As expected of the bandit leader of Chuanjin, he offended so many people the moment he opened his mouth. Wang Yu creased his brows slightly when he saw the unfriendly expressions of the crowd. At that moment, he heard Wu Ji say, "Don't worry, they won't dare to do anything. The security here is definitely not just average." With that, Wu Ji pointed to the guards nearby. Even the people from Chuanjin said that Wu Ji was a despicable person. He knew that others would not dare to do anything to him. So he made people unhappy the moment he opened his mouth. He was fearless. As expected, the players who were glaring at Wu Ji only had angry expressions on their faces. None of them dared to step forward to pick a fight. Everyone knew that the people from Chuanjin had always been extremely despicable. They especially liked to see the expressions of others who were angry but did not dare to do anything to them. The anger of the people around them could be said to be what Wu Ji wanted. Wu Ji smiled in satisfaction when he saw the expressions of the crowd. He stood up and said, "Let's go. Let's get down to business. We don't have to deal with this bunch of ugly people." Wang Yu stood up when he heard that and put a few meters away from Wu Ji. Seeing Wang Yu's behavior, Wu Ji could not help but laugh. "Are you afraid that their attacks on me will affect you?" "No." Wang Yu shook his head. "I'm not afraid of the players attacking you. I'm just afraid that the guards will attack me when they attack the players who can't help but beat you up." That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.